I remember being in a meeting, and it was an important meeting. I remember the product vice president at the time, he asked an open-ended question and I answered it. It was the correct answer, by the way. And he was like, hey, sorry, remind me who you are again.
Yikes.
And I was like, ooh, I'm over here in performance marketing. He was like, that's right. That's where you stay.
Yo.
And I was like, man, that sucks. Then the rest is history. We scaled that from a $500,000 a year YouTube business to a $15 million a year revenue, multi-product business. Show me a billionaire that hasn't risked it all and almost lost or filed for bankruptcy at least once or multiple times. You have to have that mindset. And I'm not saying it's healthy. It's definitely not for everyone. Definitely not.
And I think a lot of people get to a certain level of success and have to come up with that crossroads to go, okay, is it money or is it my soul? Do I choose money over sometimes the right decisions?
In my experience, everything life comes to people. It always comes back to people. Now, you can experience it selfishly, which I've done a lot, but it always comes back to people. So if you're in a decent situation, the only way you lose is by quitting. It really is that simple. Everybody's looking for a scapegoat. Everyone's looking for a reason. Everyone's looking for an excuse. They can go back on Instagram. Nah, man, shut up and just do the work. Just do the work and stop thinking that it's going to happen on the first try or the third try or the fifth try. It takes as many times as it takes.
All right, guys. I'm sitting here with a good friend of mine, Lyman King. We've known each other for 2.5, almost 3 years now. Playing poker, random meet, didn't know anything about each other for the first probably year and a half of playing poker together.
My bad.
1 or 2 days a week. No, it was just we were having random conversations around the poker table. It didn't become something else for about a year, maybe plus. But then luckily was able to blossom into a good friendship. And then again, it's something, you go into groups of people and you can usually in a group of 10 to 15 people pluck out a gem or two where you're like, oh, I want to stick with this person. I like this person outside of this game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that we meet, both of us, where we go, this is fine. I see you once a week or I see you once every few weeks and I'm perfectly fine with that. We can have a great conversation and I don't feel the need to do anything outside of that. But with you, with Ross, with certain people that we've met through this world of cigar lounges and poker.
Play poker with for sure. Cigar lounge culture's dope.
There's certain people that you just want to oh, I'd love to continue the conversation outside of poker. Or, hey, let's meet up on a non-poker day and grab a drink and grab a cigar like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit, again, about how you got started just in the world of business in general. Let's go first, college. What'd you study? Did you graduate? What'd you do right afterwards? And then how did it descend from there?
Sure. Yeah. So thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. We're coming to you live from our backyard that's under construction. So thanks for bringing all your crap over here.
Yeah. I pretend like this is a real podcast and it's just not.
Yeah, that's all right. It's good practice.
Yeah.
And also, couldn't think of a better thing to do on Sunday night. So I studied political science at University of Reno, Nevada. I moved to LA shortly after, threw all my shit in my car, and lived at the 24-hour fitness gym in Costa Mesa for a couple weeks. Got a network down there eventually, met some folks. My father was a mortgage broker, but a salesperson. I mean, for any and those that don't know, those are salespeople typically, your real estate agents, your loan agents, et cetera. We lived a very great, in my opinion, upper middle class life. We did all that because he was a salesperson and a pretty analytical salesperson, I would say at that. So I got some of those traits from him. So I thought, okay, great. I had a contact, worked for Loan Depot at the time. I said, I'm going to go do sales at Loan Depot. I'm going to crush it. All these guys are driving, Ferraris and other stuff. Let's do that. That seems cool. I must have grinded it out at Loan Depot for 2 years-ish. Maybe it was a tad more than that. And just did not do well. I was, just above the cut line, barely, always. A friend of mine ended up pulling me aside and said, hey, I don't think this sales thing is for you.
Yeah.
you've been barely making the cut. Like at this point, you're just not cut because I like you.
Let's be
you know?
honest, guys.
Yeah, and so that was a tough day. But at that point, he had said, "Hey, look, marketing's hot right now. You've got some traits I think that would make you an interesting marketer. Let's give it a shot. I've got an open position over here, and there's this new thing called Google Ads at the time, Google AdWords at the time, and I'll teach you what I know about it." By the way, Loan Depot in the early part of the internet game in like 2010-ish, 9-ish was absolutely crushing it with their tools and their lead gen. That was when they were battling Quicken Loans. And got in the marketing game there, ended up parlaying that skill set, went over to Austin, Texas, where I was a marketer, performance marketer, building relationships and working on those platforms for a company called Software Advice. They were just recently got acquired by Gartner, and they were doing a roll-up of digital market businesses and lead gen in that space at the time. So this was maybe 2014. I met a really, really, really smart guy who was my boss at the time. He taught me everything about analytics, tried and true performance marketing outside of platforms, affiliate marketing, how important data is, how to be a better communicator, and kind of did my thing at that company for a while. And then I was approached by my now business partner, who we exited Simple Nursing with. He was a content creator and a nurse. He had a YouTube channel that was really successful by all YouTube channel metrics, and he was, Michael. That's a name I will drop. Michael Inaris. So just a brilliant, engaging educator, but really had a knack for creating content.
Yeah,
he has this ability that really stands out with most really successful creators, in that his content, he presents himself in a way I'm more like a host. I'm a guide that gets you through this information. And, if you're a guru or a guide teaching someone a life skill or a lesson, or in this case, nursing, that they need to pass their exams, it was really effective. And he had this really innate creative ability as well, to create like animations and video content and explainer videos that actually covered like really complex subjects like arterial fibrillation and heart failure.
It's not how to start a drop shipping business.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
This is actually a good, because I met Mike once, we chatted for a little bit, but for people who want to get into the content game, again, even just doing research, like when I was, had a quick foray, just looking at your guys' business, just how he presents himself on camera and how seamless everything is. I'm sure there's a bunch of work that went into it, but one of the most seamless content creators, I could imagine him walking into a room with either scripts or extemporaneous speaking topics and just saying, "Hey, turn on the camera and I can go." It was one of the most natural looking, and obviously from how well the brand was built, but also even just his YouTube channel. How large is his YouTube following?
Over 1 million subscribers.
Pretty huge.
Or maybe it's. I'd have to look. I haven't looked since we exited.
It's substantial, though.
It's substantial. Oh yeah, especially in a niche. So remember, he's speaking to nurses and perspiring nurses.
Yeah, it's not biz op. It's not, here's how to learn this new skill that you can go sell somewhere else.
It's a niche market.
Very niche.
His statistics in terms of his reach and his engagement is really impressive. And to be fair to him, it was really impressive even before I got a hold of it.
Yeah.
He's a creative genius, which cannot be understated. And so, he found me. He said, "Look, tried this thing a couple different times in a couple different ways. Just can't seem to make the leap off YouTube. And while I've gotten distracted trying to do these things, and you can have him on sometime. He can tell your story, but his own story. But he's like, I really need, an operator. I need someone who understands customer acquisition, that understands the process and organization of a business, and that can hire talent, form an actual company, because I think I've got something really special here."
Yeah. You just put wheels behind the machine.
Yeah.
Or on the machine.
Yeah. To an extent, for sure. And so that's, then the rest is history. We scaled that from a $500,000 a year YouTube business to a, $14-15 million a year. It's actually probably more than that. Revenue, multi-product business that was acquired in the beginning of 2024. So him and I have exited from that, and now I am on to other entrepreneurial activities.
Endeavors.
Yeah.
I know that again, the broad topic here was like the righteous pursuit of wealth, success, insert desirable thing here. Again, in my world that I've come up with, which is online marketing, online business, personal branding, kind of that space right now, it seems like everybody they come to a crossroads. A lot of people don't even get to the crossroads. So it's almost admirable, not almost, it's admirable to even have to make those decisions to choose wealth or righteous pursuit of an ideal. One of my mentors calls it like a pursuit of a worthy ideal. Like your job is to be in pursuit of a worthy ideal. What is the thing that you can tie yourself to that says, no matter how I deploy this, my worthy ideal is what I'm constantly driving toward. And I think a lot of people get to a certain level of success and have to come up with that crossroads and go, okay, is it money or is it my soul? And soul feels really like hard and deep and maybe sometimes giving it a little bit too much power. But it's, do I choose money over sometimes the right decisions? And so I want to talk about how you've been able to choose the long path pretty consistently, even when the quick successes are thrown your way, or I could exit for this, I could do this thing instead, or the shiny object instead. How do you stay the course and say, I'm just going to be this person regardless of what's happening around me, and be in, again, an honest or a righteous pursuit of success, excellence, wealth?
Yeah. Let me do my best with that one. So first and foremost, this is who I am. This is what I believe. It's not a great fit for everyone. Also, winning helps a lot. Winning is the great blanket that gets thrown over all your bad decisions and all your losses, and everybody thinks that you're, amazing. But in reality, my objective as a leader is to make 6 out of 10 good decisions. Which is a little counterintuitive to most people. I intuitively understood that this was the best model for me, but then I read a book called Thinking in Bets. I can't remember the name of the author. It was a female author. Mm-hmm. Brilliant book. And I think that's why I gravitate towards, I've always gravitated towards poker. But it's like, look, every decision is an investment. Every investment requires due diligence. It requires an understanding of the data, understanding of the things in motion, the pros and the cons, the do's and the don'ts, etc. So if my job as a leader is to make 6 out of 10 good decisions, then I have done what I can do as directionally leading the business, and more than likely, we're going to win. I have done that in my career. And so as a result of that, we have won. But I don't have this long, illustrious career of stacking wins, right? I'm still pretty young and early in this game. So if you remove that, what I typically think about is I wouldn't be described by most people that are really close to me as like a super religious man, right? But I do believe, and I got this from my father, that doing the right thing is really important. And I watched him build a mortgage company up, a couple locations in Northern California, and then lose it all. And then as he's going out, have 20, 30 mouths to feed, and having a conversation with my mom in the living room table that said, hey, we're going to give everybody 6 months and like $8K a month, and we're going to bleed the account dry. Yikes. And we're going to take care of everybody. And she was like, what? Like, what?
Excuse me?
Yeah. And I'm like a kid in high school, or, just out of high school.
This is 08 around?
This is like 7, because the writing had been on the wall there for a minute, I think. And so it's rooted in me. It's like a core principle that I have is like, and I did not create this. I observed it from my father, is like, you take care of people. And I've also had this on my way up in corporate America. I had this feeling multiple times where, how am I not valued like more? How am I not reaching the value with these people? How do they not identifying me as worthy when I definitely am? I remember being in a meeting, and it was an important meeting, and the business was struggling. This was I'm not going to say what business. This wasn't, simple nursing. And I remember being in a meeting as like a marketing representative. And I remember the product vice president at the time, he like asked an open-ended question and I answered it. It was the correct answer, by the way, but it's not really that important. And he was like, hey, sorry, remind me who you are again.
Right.
And I was like, ooh, I'm over here in performance marketing. He was like, that's right. That's where you stay.
Yo.
And I was like, man, that sucks. And I remember in that moment, I was like, you know what? I want to create a company. I want to create a culture where you hire a bunch of smart people, you invest a lot in developing them and bringing them along, you incentivize them by giving them stake in the game, and then you just you just commit to being a servant leader. I think that's the terminology, servant leader.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that means that you work a lot. You don't follow that model where like, okay, you accomplish something, you hire a couple people, they take over that role, you move to the next, and you move to the next. Unfortunately, it usually means that you've got a very clear line of path and line of sight, and you're doing a lot. But it's where I found success. So in a roundabout way, I believe in connection with people strongly. I believe that I can motivate a human to have the desire and the will to win just by incentivizing them, investing in them, and building a really personal relationship that means something. Like firing somebody is the worst. It's the worst.
Because if you care, it's the worst.
Well, I just happen to care. Yeah, it's like having a conversation where you know that it's not working, and you actually owe it to everybody else rowing in the right direction. That it's you actually owe it to them to move on from that person. I don't view it as their fault. It's actually my fault. There just wasn't something that I did well enough, and that's your burden to bear as the leader. But it's often, in my experience, not their fault. It's my fault.
How much would you value, or have you valued, I guess, previously, finding the people who already have that embedded in them versus developing that in somebody?
Hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even close. It's probably the hardest thing in business is recruiting top talent, because.
But I'm saying, were you trying to find people who already had that in them? Or did you just go, I can find smart people and develop the want to or the willingness to just jump into the fire with me in those people? Or did you find people who you felt were already willing to jump into the fire with you?
Well,
is it taught or is it learned?
I would say that is, and it's not a cop-out answer. It's an honest answer from my experience. It depends on the business. It depends on the timing. It depends on the cap table and investment and all that. But
sure. Let's say the business that you successfully exited.
Yeah. So
what was
if you
the game
have a
plan there?
business that didn't take that much money to create, like your seed investment was reasonable, it didn't completely wipe you out. I had a nice savings that my wife and I built up from my corporate years. Your very first boots on the ground asset when you make your first hire, because in the beginning everything's you. You're doing every job. You know exactly how it should be done. You've made all the mistakes to understand where it goes, and when you're ready and you've got the thing on rails, you say, okay, I'm ready for somebody. In my opinion, that very first person just has to be a culture fit. They have to be the dude or the gal that's going to sit in a foxhole next to you. You're about to die, and they choose to put their gun up on the other side of the hole and start shooting in the right direction. They're here. They're going to do it, and they care deeply about winning, and they care about their commitment to you. I was lucky enough to find that. I had a gentleman that I worked with in a previous life. I knew exactly what kind of cloth he was cut from. He was the first person I thought of, and that was our first employee, and that was enormously important for us in that business at that time in tech. Employee one needs to drink the Kool-Aid, needs to want to win as badly, needs to be the guy that's gonna all my culture values in business: do the right thing, especially when no one's watching, tell the truth even if it leads to your doom, find the pros and cons of every scenario, act first, beg for forgiveness later, get shit done. Those are our core values, and that person has to embody them in the early days for sure. Then after that, you can deploy kind of SMEs or subject matter experts in different places. They have to be a culture fit, but you know that you now have a culture champion along with you that you can raise that tribe in understanding. Like,
So you're not the one person at the front trying to get people on board with the culture. You've built it from within, and you have other people championing the same culture that you're espousing from the top.
yeah,
It's trickling down to the rest of the team through
Yes.
the initial team members that you're
I would agree with that.
building. Let's again, talking through, everybody's had those moments of like, okay, it's money or people, or it's a good business decision or a good people decision. How are those initially received? Like when you run up against those, how do you initially receive them? And then what's the thought process of deciding when I'm choosing the success of the company or the success of the people within the company, if those two things differ?
It's a hard thing if you care about people, because you spend a lot of time with these people, unless you're full of shit. I'm working 85, 90 hours a week on average at that time. These people that you bring along, in these cases early on, you've given them equity. I typically pay like 20% higher than average salary. So I talk about incentivization a lot. I think that's really important. If you say that you want top talent and then you work them like a dog, like, yeah, all the rah-rah stuff's sexy, but like you should also pay them.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's lost in a lot of areas. Like, yeah, maybe you can get away with not doing that for a year or two, but then they hate you. Then what's your plan? Just like turn and burn and find the next kid and reinvest all of your time and energy teaching them everything you know, and then they'll just get mad. And that never made sense to me. So you pay them really well. They've got equity. They'll make a mistake.
Yeah.
That mistake you will understand intuitively as a mistake. You'll approach them. You'll try to understand the how and the why. You'll realize that their computation model, like their set of inputs and their representation of how they made that decision, doesn't align at all with your values and why. And so you step back and you go to the source code and you say, okay, how did this person get so far off the beaten path and away from my process? Okay, so my person, I say, this is the fault of the leader. I'm not paying close enough attention. I'm not giving good enough guidance. I haven't left the door open wide enough for them to understand that they come to me with anything, because that is it. Like, I want to be very clear about something. Usually, if it gets to the point where you have to part ways with somebody, it's because they have gotten so insecure or done so poorly at their job that they have been more afraid to connect with you deeper to try to solve it with you.
Yeah.
They become more scared about losing the job, and it renders them pretty much ineffective.
Yeah, survival
in
at
these
this point. It's not going for excellence. It's going for just enough to not get fired or to fly under the radar. Again, this is something that when you're talking about A talent and paying them like A talent, that I've poked at in my industry forever, where people will go in like Facebook groups and be like, I want an A player for sales or for operations or for marketing or for whatever. And I've always noticed, because I've been on some of these calls where people will tag me in that post, and I'll get on the call with the business owner for marketing, let's say, and they go, okay, cool. Like, here's our compensation structure to come in as like a CMO of my company. And I go, you guys are doing how much? And you're wanting to pay somebody $5,000 a month for a $20 million a year business to become like the head of marketing or the director of marketing for this company. Yeah. So what a lot of them are really saying when they say I want an A player is I want an A player who's willing to get paid like a D player and shut the fuck up and don't say anything about it. And then we've seen it in, again, my industry. Some of the top companies in this industry have a good 3 to 5 year run, and then they get a little bit ahead of themselves on, oh, I'm just going to have the top talent come to me. I can pay them like dog shit, and they're going to stick around. And I started realizing a lot of them would churn these people. Like, there's a company specifically, and I'm friends with the guy who ran the company. They ran through like 3 or 4 CMOs in 9 months, 12 months, something like that. And I had gotten on a call with them, and I told them, here's what I charge to come in for this role. And they were like, okay, can we pay you half? And then we can work up to it. Or one of the things was, can we pay you 1% of any money that comes in from the ads that you're running? And I said, well, I've never charged less than 8%. So I don't know how we make up that difference. And when we kind of came to a point of contention where I was just realized it wasn't a good fit, I just said, hey, are you guys open to some feedback? Of course, they'll say yes, even if they aren't. And the feedback again was, I think what's happened here is that you guys have used I work for so-and-so company as part of people's compensation. Where if somebody can say, I've run ads for this company, that's almost part of their compensation for working for you. So you can pay them like dog shit in exchange for being able to put in their Instagram bio, I run ads for so-and-so company. And this is something I found as a point of leverage for my own business as well. Or when I'm negotiating with these people is saying, I'll never talk publicly about working with you guys.
Yeah.
So let's remove that from the table.
Yeah.
Now compensate me fairly.
Yeah.
And it was never ever a yes for those companies because they've been almost trained with bad behavior. They've been trained that they can do this and get away with it, and the person will leave in a few months, and that's okay, we'll find another. And so how do you overcome, or how would you say treating people appropriately and compensating them appropriately has not saved the business, has lended to the long-term success of the company, as opposed to, again, being able to just undercompensate and still expect the most out of the people that you hire because in your mind they're lucky to be there?
So I'm in a different industry, and I can't speak really well to yours whatsoever. I don't have that experience.
Yeah.
In technology, where you're leveraging typically software, right? It's typically software. It's not that there's not. But there is, an engineer or five. There's product managers or a few. There's a head of marketing, and then there's typically 5, 6, 8 marketers that have different disciplines. You have your customer service. You have all these departments. Technology allows you to create a force multiplier of output based on what you're going for. So it's actually in my best interest to hire a really freaking good marketer who has experience in different so customer acquisition, customer retention, customer activation. He or she has like a really broad skill set, because if I can, with incentivization, convince them, hey, this is a really good use of 4 or 5 years of your time. You're going to get paid really well, and if we win, you're going to do really well. Or you're going to have a ton of autonomy. You're going to be able to have a ton of flexibility in who I am and where I come from in the businesses that I've gone through. It's work from home. It's very lax. I treat you like an adult. I don't micromanage you. That is a great contrast to corporate America and the other opportunities they have.
Yeah.
So based on what I've seen and the feedback from the team, that moth just did an absolute
dive bomb.
Yeah.
Kamikaze moth.
Rest in peace. That's a lot sexier than going to work for corporate America and trying to fight for your $80, $90, $120,000 a year and have to do the BS meetings and the stuff that they don't like to do.
Yeah,
and
the
so,
cheap ladder climb.
Yeah, and so for where I come from, if I spend $40, $50, $80, $150,000 of my time and commitment for 3 to 4 months, and I deploy them properly, and I support them as a servant leader in the way I should, I will get 10x the output, because again, they're leveraging technology in a digital space, than I would trying to burn through 5 or 6 people quarterly or biannually or annually.
Yeah.
So in my industry, what you just shared gives me a headache. Like, it almost guarantees me more work in the long term. Now my job is recruiting and onboarding and
it's
teaching.
a constant cycle of that.
And it's a cycle. So I'm doing that instead of doing the things that I need to do for the company to make money and grow.
Yeah.
Because that's another principle I have, and I don't know what they have. If I'm not growing 100% year over, like that's a rule that everybody who knows me knows. If I'm not growing 100% year over year, we're actually failing.
You've done
like there's
wrong.
Something wrong.
Yeah.
And it's, hey, we're at 60, 70, like awesome. Like I get it. But that end of the year review, that end of the year meeting,
and
that's not fun. Like no one's having fun. That's not, we're going to Vegas and I'm handing out $500 like fun things at the blackjack table before the holiday party. Like that's not what that is. That's, hey guys, we got an extra day of meetings today. We got to figure this out, And if you're new to the company, you're like, I've been at some place we've been growing like 6% year over year for 3 years.
And they're excited.
We're the shit. We're awesome. And so that story confuses and discombobulates me entirely, because I don't see how a business can be run that way. Now, in contrast, I do know with certain like sales models, like high turnover is welcome. Like I've been a part of that. Like, they're going to automatically cut 50% of their sales force
Yeah.
quarterly or monthly because it's a dog-eat-dog world and they only want to actually retain top performers. But a CMO or someone who's like in charge of operations, you potentially talk to other people within the company. Like, how corrosive and poison is that?
Yeah,
That
but that's
sound...
why, again, in my industry, I can think of maybe 2 or 3 companies that have lasted over, let's say, 7 years, and I've been in my industry for 9. I have yet to see somebody eclipse 10 years.
Is your industry defined as like coaching?
The internet marketing world, I'd say.
Okay.
So coaching is kind of in it. It's kind of a weird like crossover, and I'm not quite sure why it's so incestuous that the online coaching and the online marketing world has kind of enmeshed themselves together.
I can tell you why. Because people who can hit home runs marketing typically have a lot of great things to teach about it.
Yeah, yeah. There's also been this world of those who can't do teach. I think what happened with a lot of people is they realize I can't grow a company. I think this kind of lends to what you've been talking about as well, is the inability to adopt long-term thinking has caused a lot of people to go toward, why don't I just do a teachable model and sell a course or sell a subscription service or sell a churn and burn kind of like, we'll come and manage your sales team and just churn through the bottom 80% of people constantly. And you're going to continue paying us a retainer because look at these 20% of people that we really were able to find for you. And so they're willing to churn 80 to 90% of the people who come in because you as a company look at the few wins that they got and go, wow, this guy's incredible. He's really good at finding talent.
Well, I've seen a lot of companies and entrepreneurs that I respect operate on very different models than I do. So
Sure.
I'm the last person to.
But this is it.
to
Like,
judge
it's
those.
subjective advice. It's not that this works for everybody. You kind of already put out that safeguard. But it is something, obviously, that works. And we've seen it work other places. Again, it's just the industry that I'm in that you've seen pieces of because you were kind of in that world, which is kind of funny. Like, when I found out what you guys did, again, a year after knowing you, I was like, oh, we kind of do, like, not similar things, but my world fits in your world. We just happen to be completely separate. You haven't been embedded in the online marketing training world, even though that's the business.
I did it for a corporation for,
like but not for your own
10
company.
years. Yeah.
Would you say that a lot of it's because of what you learned when you were in corporate, where you go, oh, I don't want any piece of these things that seem to be embedded in this industry?
This is such a cheesy answer, but like everything, I've learned to be very, very, I've learned, and you know what? Let's give shout out to Michael and Harsh for some credit. Like in the dark days, man, like you're on your last dollar. That happened to us, 3-4 times. You're on your last dollar. It seems like this thing isn't going to work. And then I have an idea, or he has an idea. And we're like, okay, let's explore this. My ability to take that idea, that half-baked, typically shitty idea, from like 0.5 to 100% in 72 hours, because I didn't sleep for 72 hours. My freaking wife and mother-in-law are like walking in the office with like quesadillas, like asking me not to pass out. Like,
keep going.
I only have those abilities because of the success and the struggle that I had working for those people. And, I worked for an amazing person. Shout out to Zach. I worked for an amazing person that didn't just help me with how I analytically or intellectually went about marketing. It was understanding how to work. Like, I showed up at this dude's office in Austin, Texas after getting the job. He's like, we work from 7 to 7. And I was like, damn, homie, you should have told me that before I negotiated my salary. What are you doing? He might have, actually. I don't know. But, he taught me how to work. And so those two things go hand in hand.
What would you say in those moments where you are, like, stripped down to the last thing and this has to work or else we don't? What stops you from grabbing the life raft and just going, all right, we're going to strip it all down, cut all of our costs, and try to rebuild something brand new? What makes you go for, we can find the ideas there, now we just need to go find it, as opposed to, let's burn down everything that isn't working and go rebuild? Because I think a lot of people, again, they find themselves in these cycles of when things aren't working and we're down to our last, oh shit, let me just strip everything else down and try to rebuild something else, or come up with a new offer or a new pivot that we can make to revive the company. But then we're also dropping off most of the people who have been reliant upon us. What stops you from grabbing the life raft?
3 basic things. One is I am extraordinarily lucky in that I had a brilliant creator as my partner. This man could this is like a professional educator and content maker. I mean, there's no situation that he can't create his way out of, and we had established so much efficacy in our marketplace with our audience. Like these nurses and these nursing students, they loved everything that he produced. So if you have a wizard that's there and is just ready to pump out content, and all I need to do is understand how to create a profitable business or model or scheme or hustle behind that, I was always in a lucky position where I always had an ace in the deck. It was just my job to deploy it. It was my job to understand how to deploy it. So I was very lucky, and I had Mike. The second thing is, I don't know if you've gotten this from me yet, or maybe you'll just laugh because we have had this conversation, but I am enormously competitive.
Yes.
I would rather, it kind of goes back to like having this conversation with my dad. Hey, I'm moving down to Southern California. He said, fucking what? What do you mean? Like, mortgage company's doing well. Like, I was kind of hoping this was going to be a family business.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to go. Okay, what's your plan? I don't know. I'm just going to figure it out.
Not quite sure yet.
Yeah. And that kind of leads to everything. Like I left the job, a good job. I left that job. I got to make this one work. I can't turn tail and go back and show everybody that I was wrong. I got to figure this out, and I'm going to win. And I'm always going to bet on me. I'm never going to go back to betting on somebody else. I'm going to bet on me. And so that really helps you get through knowing that I am willing to work harder. I have no ego whatsoever, at least in business. I have no ego whatsoever in business. If someone's got a better idea or there's a better way of doing things, or I'm going to bang into this wall the 8th time to learn that this is the 9th thing, this is the one that's going to work, great, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
And so my work ethic, my competitive nature, and my willingness to lose before I win, Mike Linares coins this learn before you earn, which is a really interesting way of putting it. If I've got something, the problem in the equation is me. I just have to figure it out. And it's on me, and it's my responsibility. It's no one else's responsibility.
Ultimate responsibility.
It's on me. God gave me a gift. He put me in a position. It is absolutely my job to deliver. And when the whole thing's said and done, if you don't quit, you know who else says this a lot is Hormozi. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for Hormozi's lessons.
Yeah.
If you're in a decent situation, the only way you lose is by quitting. And then I'd say the third and final thing is, like, I just have such an amazing support of my family, like my wife, and especially when we were going through all this in the beginning, building the business, going through the turmoil. I just quit like a super cushy, great income job. I went running off into this business. We just had our first baby. Like, can't let her down. Mm-hmm. Like, dang, like can't let her down at all. And she was a little worried. They've always had my back, and I just had people counting on me. It really is that simple. I think it's in 2024, we're now in 2025, everybody's looking for a scapegoat. Everyone's looking for a reason. Everyone's looking for an excuse. They can go back on Instagram. No, man, shut up and just do the work.
Thing.
Just do the work and stop thinking that it's going to happen on the first try or the third try or the fifth try. It takes as many times as it takes.
I've seen this a lot. Again, I put on my psychology hat when I'm looking at situations like that a lot of times, and people will go, let me make this as complex as possible for myself. The problem, let me overcomplicate the problem so that if things don't work, I can just say it was super complex. It was super difficult.
You might as well have just not shown up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, that is the key cop-out that I see from people is like, well, you just wouldn't understand. It was really, really difficult. And here's why it's different than everybody else's situation. If I can make it complex, it's just like people do, I think, in personal relationships too, is like, if I can convince myself that it's too complicated, I can then have a scapegoat for not doing it or for not pursuing the thing or for, again, grabbing for that life raft at the first sign of inconvenience. Because if it was simple, even if it's difficult, if the solution was simple, or like for you saying, if it's all on my shoulders, I have to go do it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will overcomplicate things so that they can kind of feel better about things not working out when they don't work out, as opposed to stripping down and saying, no, this is simple. It's not easy, but it is simple. Now let me go find the one thing that really pushes this in the right direction, or your ace in the hole, like you said.
That it makes sense. I think ultimately what I distill that down to though is I care deeply about what other people think. I could care less what people think. Like, well, that's
What most people think.
I deeply care about what my wife thinks. I deeply care about what my family thinks. I think you and I have talked about this before, but like, I fear God tremendously. I have a deep-rooted fear for God, and so those two things do a great job of really, if you're sitting here mining for meaning on something, what's left over is not going to be what my 400 followers or maybe these folks that you're talking about, thousands or hundreds.
It doesn't matter.
But the point is like I don't care what you think about me. Which is why when I win, I don't put it on social media. When I lose, I don't put it on social media. The thing I put on social media is like, I went to Pebble Beach. That's dope, right?
Yeah.
Like I took my wife to Paris, took my family to Disneyland. Like, that's pretty cool. Why else would I do it?
Yeah.
So I think that distills down to like I care about what other people think, and for me, that is the root of all evil, because it will all lead you to a self-fulfilling prophecy that will hurt. In my opinion, which will lead you to a dark place.
Yeah. I just made a post the other day about like the addiction to public perception. There's an addiction that people have to how I'm perceived. And if I can never be perceived as weak, I always have to find the reason why it wasn't my fault, or why circumstances made me do this, or some outside circumstance made me make these sacrifices. These sacrifices that, again, are, if in a vacuum, you would say went against your values. But when you inject the scenario, you're able to justify why you've been able to drop your values for a minute in order to revive a business or revive something that you hold value in only because of public perception.
All right, noted. That's dumb. Let me tell your listeners why this is dumb. I am now a professional investor. I guess I can call myself that. Once you reach a certain net worth and you look to redeploy your capital elsewhere, you become an institutional or professional investor.
Yeah.
There are times and situations where I will get behind or get down with someone that I have so much alignment on in beliefs, core values, work ethic, loose set of skills. But more often than not, when I'm deploying a large sum of capital, especially if I know that I'm not going to be like deeply rooted in the business, like they're not asking me to go play a role in this business. They're not asking me to go operate the business. They're operating the business. Let's say it's some market adjacent thing that I don't totally understand, or it's not like my specialty. It's not software. It's not tech. I'm looking for people that have lost and figured out a way to win, because you are going to lose. You're going to get kicked in the dick.
Yeah.
This is how it works.
You need scrappers.
Yeah, I need someone that got kicked hard. Then when they went to get up, they got kicked in the ribs. Like, oh, that sucks. And they got up. They got punched in the mouth. And then they got up again and found a way to win. That's who I want to invest in. If you come to me with a remarkable, unblemished record, awesome. Like, congratulations. No, that's dope. No, like, look, and I'm not a skeptical person. So, like, congratulations, man. Or, that's well done. Like, that's incredible. Don't ask me for $100 million or $10 million. Like, no. Like, yeah. I need to see you lose, and I need to see how you recover from losing, or if you recover. Because an unblemished record turns into ego typically, and then ego. In my experience, ego kills you every time. Well, I spend more time suffocating my ego than I spend on work itself. So I think it's rather important.
Yeah. Again, like when you're talking about the unblemished record, it can lull you into a sense of comfort in it's always going to be this simple or this easy, and you're wildly unprepared.
Yes, you're absolutely wildly unprepared, and you're never going to reach. Let's say you don't deal with any of that. You're never going to reach high enough. You're going to get at 10,000 feet. You're going to make 20, 50, $100 million. And you're going to say, cool.
Good enough.
Yeah, good enough. And by the way, again, nothing wrong with good enough. Absolutely nothing wrong with good enough. Let me make that clear.
If the money was the point.
Don't tell me that you're ready for $1 billion.
Yeah.
But you're unwilling to throw that $100 million, everything you own, into the pot again.
Lyman, I can't tell you how many times I've had this conversation with, again, I work with young guys mostly in the coaching side of my business. For every single one who talks about, I want $1 billion exit, I want a $500 million exit, I want an X amount exit. I'm thinking of a specific client right now as well.
How much pain can you endure?
That's one of the massive pieces. And also, show me a few million first. I think, again, it's again, the addiction to public perception. Everybody wants to say they exited for X amount of money, or they were able to build and sell or build and retain X amount of money. Most of the people who are saying this haven't done 10% of that or 1% of that, and they're still they're attached to the number, not the method that gets you to the number, or the amount of shit eating and continuing to move forward that gets you actually to that number.
Yeah, your folks aren't going to like me.
But that's what they need.
Well, I operate on a philosophy of, like, again, ego is death. You have to work at brutally murdering your ego every day to be successful. But I'm never letting anybody know where the next move is coming. Why would I ever come out and say to anybody, oh, my goal is $1 million or $10 million or 100 or $1 billion? Like, why would I put that kind of pressure and that kind of heat and that public relations nightmare out there? Why would I want a venture capitalist or an investor know that I'm more focused on a number of income instead of changing the market or the industry or the business marketplace that I'm in?
Yeah.
That's what they care about. They don't get...
The number doesn't matter.
The number doesn't matter, because, if you're great, you're going to do it 10 times. You'll reach whatever number that you need to. If you're trying to get people on your side and you're trying to win, you need people. You need human capital. You need trusted people. You also need money. You will need investors. You will need all these things. And I'm not investing in anybody that's just coming out with, I got to hit this goal. No, I want to hear about how your stuff is going to change the lives of the consumers that use it or the businesses that use it, and will let them expand into a total addressable market that changes their industry.
Yeah, they decide the number really at the end of the day.
That money
The market
comes.
decides.
That money comes to you. You are the mage. You are the person that is doing the work. I don't get down with people that are just solely motivated on money. And in my experience, it's never enough anyways.
Yeah.
Like Hormozi says this, and I didn't understand it at first because I was in the dog days, but now I absolutely do understand it, and I agree. Like, I'm just going to set a new target. At first the target was like, I want to stay at home with my family and not report to this job every day with people that I feel like undervalue me. Then it was, okay, we've got this business. It's doing $1 or $2 million a year in top line revenue. Dang, that's like Mike and I can keep like $500,000 a year. Like, I can go to my kids' practice. I can afford California. Like, this is cool. And then it became, wow, this thing could potentially be sold. To it became, wow, I think I should double revenue and double my evaluation before it came sold. And then it sold, and I was like, wow, this is cool. And about 3 weeks in, this is awful.
I got too much time on my hands.
Like, this is terrible. I can only smoke so many cigars. My wife was like, you need to leave.
Yeah, I need you to go somewhere.
You need to go on like a golf trip or something.
Get a hobby.
And I was like, you're right, definitely. Went and did that. Mike and I went to Pebble Beach, which was amazing. And I'm just like, nah, the new goal is X. And I'm certain when I get there, then the new goal becomes Y.
It's never enough.
And I'm, I don't recommend this for other people, but I have a love of the game. And I have committed my life at this stage to playing the game. I've divided my life up in seasons. I understand that there are unique challenges and unique representations in each season, and this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm into. But show me a billionaire that hasn't risked it all and almost lost, or filed for bankruptcy at least once or multiple times. You have to have that mindset. And I'm not saying it's healthy. It's definitely not for everyone. Like, definitely not. But, I'm blessed with a wife and a family that supports me. They understand I'm sick and this is my only medicine. And so it works for us. Now, come and talk to me 2 years from now when I've lost it all and I've got some sweet idea that I'm going to go do and see how frantic I sound. But
I think of a friend of ours who put a PowerPoint together for his now wife.
Oh my gosh!
When they first met, it was just like, "Look, here's the sicko you're getting into bed with."
Listen here,
literally and figuratively. Yeah. Here's the sicko you're getting in with. can you accept all of this? And I was like, this is the perfect thing to give to that person because this is what they're signing up for. What happens, I think a lot of times is people will hide what the other person is signing up for and hope that they're along with it when it comes. As opposed to, like for him, he laid it out all on the table. Here's what it is. Here's who I am. Here's everything in a literal presentation for her.
Yeah.
Can you get on board with this? And then she has to go home and really ask herself, am I on board with this? And the answer, luckily, was yes for both of them.
Yeah.
Because they seem to be really awesome together. But he had to, for being who he is, have a person that is on board with all facets of who I am. Can you accept this? Can you be on board with this sick fuck that I am in business? Not actual sick fuck. And can you be along for the ride with me? And again, I don't think people, I think about for employees and for people that they're willing to share their lives with, people aren't open with, here's who you're actually getting in bed with.
It's hard to be open.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's the hardest thing to do. This gentleman that we're talking about, he only got there because he had a marriage that he felt like he let her down by not being more open, by not being more transparent, by taking this woman places that she didn't want to go.
Yeah.
And the same is true in business. Like how I build the business today and the resources and asset allocation that I contribute to or that I define changes. And if I'm not who I say I am and they can't trust me, well, sorry, dude, everything changed.
Yeah.
You're out. Don't hate me. This is business. I don't want to do that. I'd rather have a promise and understanding that I'll figure something else out. You want to become an engineer? Like, I know it sounds crazy. You have the opportunity to opt out, but they know when you're mature and you are honest and you're transparent, a lot of problems get solved. And I'll tell you what typically doesn't happen. There's never a burned bridge. Like, even if it doesn't work out, there's never a burned bridge. So I say that to say maturity and pain typically, through fire and brimstone, do you create this skill of being very transparent and very honest. It doesn't always start that way.
Yeah.
You're just like put in a conditional environment where you had to do that.
Yeah. I think about for a good size of my business, especially when in comparison to other stories that I've heard, the amount of like referrals I've gotten from people who I've worked with that the project didn't work out well, because you're the right person and they know you're the right person and they're the right person.
Ship it. Let's go somewhere else.
It massively transcends.
Yeah.
Even people who've like, hey, like we went down in a ball of flames on our first project, but I believe in the intent. I believe that like there were other things that didn't go great. It wasn't supposed to work out. And I have this new thing. Let's jump into it together.
A player's F opportunity. That happens all the time.
Yeah. And I just think about like, if I took those things personally, when we had that phone call of like, hey man, this isn't working like we thought it was going to, how do we continue? And usually like, hey, we can't continue. For those people to come back, it was a really good testament to, okay, being the right person works. Being the right person makes people
What else is there?
want to reach back out. Well,
What else is there?
There's a whole fucking lot else.
Well, but there isn't. There's maybe behaviors and characteristics that people will present themselves as and be eliminated or excluded. But in the winner circle or in the folks that are, let's not even define it as money. Let's define it as happiness.
Uh-huh.
Like, if you're a truly honest and empathetic person with the best intentions, you cannot lose. You are far more likely to succeed.
We can't lose holistically. You could lose at a thing that you projected out to do. You can't lose completely.
Yeah, I agree. So I think I agree with what you're saying.
So we have, you can call them vices or things that we enjoy in cigars and poker, that I feel like what people do outside of business heavily defines or heavily describes who they are as a person. So I want to start off with cigars and then move over to poker. What have you learned specifically about life and business through, let's say, just your journey with cigars? Like, how did you get started in them? Who got you started in them? What was the process of, I actually enjoy this? Because I don't think most people enjoy their first cigar or their first glass of whiskey or their first time playing poker when they get fucking wrecked.
Yeah.
But something keeps you doing it, and then you can always tie it back to things that you're experiencing in your life or a value system that you have in your life that relates to the hobby, whether it's golf or something else.
Everything in life, in my experience, everything in life comes to people. It always comes back to people. Now, you can experience it selfishly, which I've done a lot, but it always comes back to people. So I always had this like inherent, like, I don't know what the definition of this would be, but it wasn't religious, but it's like, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to live by these like biblical values, but I'm not religious, right? Like, religion's responsible for, people, killing other people. Like, no, I'm above that. I don't need that. Well, then I met my wife, and we had some ups and downs, and she revealed herself and her family as who they are, and lo and behold, actually get down with Jesus Christ. I'm like, that's for me. I have my bits and my struggles. I'm a very intellectual person, so I negotiate that value constantly. But, I follow the Lord because of my wife. I follow the Lord because of another gentleman that's in my wife's family, and his father and my mother-in-law, and some of these people that really pushed me there. Cigars, I had a roommate in Austin, and his name was Tom. And gosh, you got to meet Tom. Tom's an awesome dude. But Tom would, hey, buddy, what's going on at work today? Let's go outside and let's talk. I'm like, what? We got a couch right here, my man. What do we do? Yeah, but I want to smoke. So I must have went outside just doing nothing, like drinking soda or water as this guy smoked outside of our apartment in downtown Austin. And I started to really like the smell, okay? Then, Felicia and I have our first kid. We move in together. She's pregnant. And I'm like, I got to just try it. Like, let's just try it. And then, towards the later stage of pregnancy, I'm now super deep in the business. I've got no other time. Now it's like 9 p.m. I'm like, I got to take 2 hours off of work. Like, I got to do it. So I started getting into smoking. And from then on, it's just, I start with the lighter stuff, get deeper into it. And now, cigars are a huge part of my fulfillment in life, as cheesy as that sounds. Like, if I get an hour or two a day to myself, that's absolutely what I'm going to do.
That's how you want to spend it.
That's what I'm absolutely going to do. Cigars also allow me the platform to decompress and absorb other sensory information. So I love reading books when I'm smoking. I love listening to podcasts on subjects, mostly business, if I'm honest, but sometimes some other things. And then there's a social aspect that I did not find out about cigars. By the way, my brother-in-law back in California smoked, and another buddy of ours, so we did some of that there. But when I moved to Scottsdale, I realized, like, whoa, there's actually a cigar culture. Like in California, if you're a smoker, people are like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, everybody thinks cigarettes too.
Yeah, and so these people just aren't, like you're shunned into this back door, like you can't have an alcoholic beverage while you're smoking. Let's throw you in the locker room in the back, and that's where you can smoke. Cigar culture here is dope. Like, you can go to a lounge and you can choose to work and not say anything to nobody, and nobody takes it personally. By the way, I did that for like the first 2 years I lived here.
Yep.
A lot of the good friends that I have now, including yourself, I used to just walk by, hey, how's it going? And then get to work.
That's it.
But now I think as much of smoking cigars today, it's the friendships and it's the relationships that I've built smoking cigars. Like my mentor today, I would not have met if I didn't smoke cigars.
Yeah.
A lot of the deep conversations with people that I care about the most come from cigars. That's just something I really enjoy.
Yeah. I call them three wise men which kind of funny. They're wise in business, and they were wise in life as well, but they had made their share of mistakes. I think the lowest,
we all have our share of
mistakes. The lowest one was, I think, on his fourth marriage.
Yeah.
There were, I think, two on their fifth marriages, one on his fourth marriage, all hedge fund guys. They all lived outside of San Diego. And I met them at a marketing event, and that somehow I just got ingratiated with them. We were all sitting around a dinner table. I had said a few things about when I was doing the interviews, and I interviewed one of them, and we had a good 4-hour conversation at his house in his backyard. And I had my little laptop out, I was taking notes on our interview. And he had just invited me. He's like, hey, some of my guys are coming over. We have a house together. These are all, again, wildly, ridiculously wealthy guys. We have a house that we all share. So we all have our own houses. We have the guy's house that they all smoke cigars. They all play poker. They all golf together.
Yeah.
It was super cool.
Yeah.
And you should come hang out with us. And I just got to sit and, thank God, just listen. And I was 19, maybe 20 at the time.
Oh my gosh.
And just sit and listen to these guys.
I forget you're a baby even now. I forget you're young.
It was just funny because we're kind of close in age. Not super far off. 6-7 years.
That's okay.
But it is far. I got to listen to the conversations that were had around cigars. And then they like to drink as well. And I never super got into like scotches and whiskeys and stuff like that. I enjoy one every once in a while, but that part didn't catch on for me as much as the cigars did. And then it allowed them that sense of like, we've decompressed from our day, especially in the industry they were in, where they're managing these gigantic funds. They want to just go decompress. And these guys legit, Monday through Thursday, had the same tea time. They would meet there in the mornings for coffee and do like their morning meetings at the house.
I'm super jealous of that, by the way.
Dude, it was so cool.
Well, it's hard. It's hard to do. It's really hard to do. And I get some of them did it because maybe they don't have wives or whatever. Like,
well, they did. This was a house for activities, let's say, that they had.
So cool that they are able to do that. And cool that their families more or less support that. Like,
well, the kids were all grown up. These guys were all in their 60s and 70s.
Yeah. Oh, you bring up another great point. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
You're the only friend that I have that I smoke cigars with that's near to my age. All of my friends through cigar culture are all significantly older. And the thing that I've noticed about the old dudes, let's just call them old dudes.
The fogies.
Yeah. The dudes with a lot to tell you is just that. They are so rich. Well, many of them are rich, but they're so rich with knowledge and experience. And they're looking for fellowship. Like in a similar way that you would go to a men's Bible study. They are looking for fellowship. Like if they like you, and again, you align with their values and the things that they think are good in the world, cigar culture, unlike anything, like how are you going to go to a bar or like a picnic? And so I'm just trying to think of random stuff. Like you're not going to get that. Where else are you going to have an hour and a half if you burn one, 2 if you burn 2 sticks? Like, this guy is going to tell you, hey, look, man, I fucked up my marriage big time. I take 100% responsibility for it. Here's how I did it. You'll tell him, like, what do you got going on, kid? And you tell him, he's like, listen, F me, right? Like, who am I? What do I care? Don't do that.
Yeah.
You don't undermine your wife when she's like, trust me, I made that mistake. Or it's like, oh, I want to go get acquired. Like, here's the offers. Here's the business model. Well, have you considered user-based consumption? Like, user pricing? What's that? It's like, shit you just learn at a cigar lounge from the dudes who make enormously more money than you typically. And they're looking for an avenue to, like, impart this knowledge. Like, they want to get it out.
They just want to give it.
Not to anybody or everybody, but, like, that's been huge for me.
I think especially when they're older. Again, they've gone through the 20s and 30s, grinding, eating shit, doing all the things. They're kind of chilling now for the most part. Some of them are still working like pretty heavily, but a lot of them are in a chill space where now it's just, I want to give it all away.
Yeah.
I want to give as much of it away as I possibly can. That's what, when I was doing the end of life interviews, one of the biggest things I realized for these people was like, I just want to give all of it. I got too much honesty from some of these people that I interviewed. And I realized, like, why did they open up to me like that? I was a 19-year-old kid. I don't know anything.
Do you have so you and I have talked about this personally. I found it fascinating. I think this was actually one of the conversations where I was like, damn, I need to hang out with Ree more. Do you have like a pod or somewhere else that folks can go and learn more about the end of life stuff that you've done?
No, I need to start talking about it more. It was what I realized when I was doing the interviews. 2 things. When I recorded the interviews, people were less open and honest with me because they were being recorded. And so I stopped recording after probably like the first maybe 20 or 30 interviews. And I just had to, because again, it started off as a selfish endeavor. I just wanted to learn more about myself and I wanted to absorb knowledge from other people. So if people are only as open as I would like them to be if I'm not recording, if I knew what a podcast was back then, I would be rich and famous at this point.
Yeah.
Even like a cheap little microphone and a shitty camera or my phone that I'd set up, like it would have been amazing. And I realized that at the time, it was taking away from the experience. And so it's all floating around in my head. Again, I've done over 1,000 of those interviews. It's all floating around in my head. I actually interviewed my wife before we met each other. I was reaching out to people I went to high school with.
Okay.
And I was just interviewing, like I had my set of 20 questions that I had asked people. And I didn't remember that I had interviewed her until we started dating. And she was like, do you remember? And she was like, I remember being so excited. Like, I was on my parents' front porch. This just guy wants to randomly interview me. This is cool. I also thought she was hot. So I was this is one that I'm definitely going to reach out to.
What's up?
And it was just, I was so thirsty for wanting to understand why people are the way they are. How did people get to where they are in life, whether it was early or really late? That's why the end of life interviews came, was I want to know what we're going to think about toward the end. I want to know what's important to these people. Same thing for, again, ingratiating myself with these groups of older men that were kind of toward the end and just wanted to give it all away, not necessarily financially, but like the wisdom and experience that they had gained. And then when I moved here, it became, again, a selfish endeavor as well, where I was looking for marketing clients. And I just was sitting one day and I was like, where do the rich old guys hang out? The guys who have the money to pay me to do this, even though I wasn't charging very much at the time, but like $1,500 it changes my entire month at that point.
Per client?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so I was like, where do these guys spend their time? They golf. I don't like golfing. They are at bars. That's not a place to really have genuine conversations, at least in my estimation at the time. And I just went into a random cigar lounge. I think the first one I went to was Fox in Old Town, and I would just hear some of the conversations going on. I just sat and listened. Yeah. I had my headphones in to look like I was working, and I just had nothing on, and I was just listening to other people's conversations. And I would find a point where they had said something I could attach myself to, or oh, I know something about that. And I could just go sit down and have a conversation with people. And I realized, again, it was not only lucrative, it got me clients, but it got me that back into that wisdom seeking that I'd done when I was doing interviews. Because I kind of stopped when I moved to Arizona in 2016.
The life-changing interviews are wild, guys. Like, they're wild. They're wild for a number of reasons. They're wild that you had that insight and fortitude to do that when you were young. They're wild in the enrichment that you got from the experience, but the results are profound. Like, pattern recognition on that was, wow, I sense a trend here. If you're enormously successful and alone, you are miserable and alone when you die. If you're moderately financially successful, or even not successful at all, but you have family and you have ties, I am enormously happy and have some gratitude before. Like, there were some insights there that are very important.
That was one of the things I saw, was the guys who had made a decent amount of money and had the family and life were way better off. They were surrounded by people who loved and cared about them, as opposed to some of the guys. And I have a clip, I think in like an Instagram reel from a podcast that I did with my friend Benny, where he was asking about the end of life interviews. And I have this specific guy, Frank, that I interviewed. He died like 5 days after I had interviewed him. And this guy had made over $500 million in his life. And I was one of 4 people at his funeral, 2 nurses and a friend that he had from college, and myself at his funeral. Kids wouldn't talk to him. Grandkids wouldn't talk to him. He had like 3 or 4 great-grandchildren at the time. He was, I think, 82 or 83. Had never met his great-grandchildren. Had been, on paper, massively successful, the most successful person I had met at the time. And I saw a sad, like, broken person who knew they were toward the end. And he had told me in the interviews, like, this is probably one of the last meaningful conversations I will ever have with somebody, so I'm here to give all of it to you. Like, I just want to tell you any questions you have, I will answer. Because I would always tell people, like, hey, anything you want to not tell me, or to not have on here.
Pressure on this,
But he was like, dude, I'm open. Like, I've fucked up enough, and I have no ego around my fuck ups. I just want to give it to somebody, and my kids won't listen. And it was a realization that helped me understand I have to connect with people where they're at. Now, for him, unfortunately, he was at a care home. Yeah. But same thing with cigars. I realized that these are these men in their natural element. This is where these men feel the most comfortable. And to date, the best conversations even you and I have had, or people that I highly admire, have been sitting in their backyard. On election night, I was out in Austin with a mentor of mine. We're sitting in his backyard.
I watched like 45 minutes.
Smoking cigars. The best conversations we've ever had. He has like a horse trough pool. He's like, I could put in a pool in my backyard, but this is a cheap option. He bought like a big old horse trough, put water in, put a filter and a motor in, like pump the water through to cycle.
Is that like digging a hole and putting the tarp and then like doing that?
Not even digging a hole. It was on the ground. It was on a slab in his backyard.
I see what you mean.
And just a big old pool. And we were sitting out there for like 3 hours. There were 3 of us just chatting, smoking cigars, had a whiskey, and had conversations that we could never possibly record and wouldn't belong on the internet. But that's how you squeezed what you wanted, like the juice out of these conversations, was when these people felt safe to talk to.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. You're right. I mean, it's not about me. I'm just kind of creating some empathy around that idea. I showed up there for 1.5 years. Churchill's, not church. And
I know I call it church and I feel bad every
time.
Yeah,
I call it church all the time. I actually said, I'm going to church. She's like, you're going to what?
Why?
Tuesday afternoon. Oh, sorry. No, there's absolutely something to the idea of I am in the environment where I'm comfortable and safe. I'm a 200-pound, 6'1" guy. Like, I absolutely need, like, forget all that. Like, I absolutely need to be safe in an environment. I got a lot to lose, you know? And so that type of stuff's important to me. So that speaks to me as well.
Going to that, trust was a massive piece of this. Was I realized that these people had to be able to trust me. I talked to a also a friend of ours that we play poker with, and he was asking about networking with these high net worth individuals that he wanted to get around. And he just asked, he's like, he said with you, he's like, Lyman treats you differently than he treats me to some degree. Why do you think that is? We're around the same age. Why do you get treated a little bit differently than I do? And I had said, one of the things that I've learned just throughout this process is that you have to understand what people value. You have to understand that person's core values and just exemplify that in yourself. Now, you can't fabricate it because they'll find out.
You can, just not for long.
Yeah. That's the thing. It gets found out over the long run. But if you can exemplify the pieces of this person that they want to see in themselves and in other people, you ingratiate yourself. You get a level of that person or a version of that person that most people don't have access to, especially when they have a lot to lose, especially when a lot of people are looking for a handout or looking for how can I climb this ladder of success by being around successful people. You have to be in favor of genuine connection above what can I get out of this person.
Yeah.
And that's like, I've used you as an example of we knew each other for a year and a half before we did any sort of business together.
Yeah.
And the conversation never even came up. No. We talked every week, 1 or 2 days a week playing poker before I even knew what you did for a living.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything else other than who this man is, and I enjoy hanging out with this person.
Super private on top of that, too. A lot of folks will just come out with it.
Oh, you gave up nothing.
Yeah.
Which is great, because those are some of the best people I've found. It also is a good safeguard I found for a lot of these people. Like when you're playing poker with people that you don't know at the Friday game, and somebody will ask you what you do, your go-to is, I'm a stay-at-home husband.
Stay-at-home husband.
It's like a random little thing. Oh, I don't do much, blah, blah, blah. Like,
I tried retired for a while, and they were like, what did you do?
Doesn't work.
And I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
That did not work
You have 3 gray hairs, sir. How are you retired?
Yeah. And I'm always like, then I'll pull out a picture of my wife and be like, see this? This is it, homie.
You know what's up.
You want to bag this? You got to be a stay-at-home yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Nah, that makes sense. It makes sense. Feeling comfortable, building the bridge, establishing rapport, but not in like any of the weird like business connotation. Like, that's what I'm learning now, and kind of some of the personal study I'm doing is it's got to be authentic, but it can't be pushy. Like,
that's huge.
You can't, like, enough time will pass, it will work or it won't, but you got to be authentic. You have to understand who you're talking to. You have to understand if there is true alignment or there's not. And you actually owe it to yourself. If it's not an alignment, don't get involved with that person. They're not going to be any good for you.
They won't do it.
And then if you move towards someone that you respect and they help you be the person that you want to be, now you have something deep. You have something real. You have something that's awesome. How I knew you and I had that was I remember I had a really bad day with my wife one day. And like, my wife and I are very private people, and we don't share anything with anybody. Usually, she's got some sisters she runs her mouth to, but that's fair.
But it stays contained.
Yeah. And it's funny because I had this really bad day, and you could tell you were like, you like left it alone, and then like an hour in, I think you texted me, and you were like because we were in front of the group, like, are you good? And I was like, today's not a good day, blah blah blah, and you just put like family ? And I was like, yeah. And Ree, you have an ability, like you have an innate ability to elicit information without it. You just care. You're just caring, right?
Just being a homie.
And you're kind of eliciting information, and you got 2 or 3 answers that you needed, and you know how important like my wife and my family is to me. Like, I love her more than anything else in the whole world. Like, I could be broke, and we could have nothing, and my wife and I would still love each other unconditionally. And so it's hard for me to express, like, I'm really mad at her right now. I'm pissed off. Like, 3 more hours, I'm on my way to Cabo to play golf. Forget this place, But I don't want to express that because it's a vulnerable thing. And I remember that's when I was like, okay, because you didn't push. You were like, home? Yeah, cool. You good? Like, you knocked back like 2 drinks tonight. You don't usually drink. Like, you good? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Okay, cool. You left it alone?
Yeah.
Then what'd you do the next day?
First thing in the morning, called you.
Hey, buddy, what's going on? You need to talk about anything? No, Kyree, I don't want to talk because my wife and I have a policy where we don't talk about it. And you were like, dope, man. Well, just don't let it get too far where you do something stupid. And that's how I was like, okay, like, I say that because that was a moment where I was like, okay, I can trust this person. Like, I can be myself. They can understand my weird quirks. Because any other dude, and not any other dude, but, poker table, just...
You're not trying to share that over there.
My blah, 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 and this and that. And then what would I do?
Well, because they all have ex-wives too that they want to inject their own. Well, my ex-wife was a...
Sure.
Like, Jesus.
Yeah. But it's like, I don't want to keep that company close by. I want people that are going to be like, hey, dude, the fight with your wife the other night, like, I get it. She probably did this and that. But, like, the fight was probably your fault. She's probably angry for a good reason, whether you understand it or not.
Even if it's not a good reason, there's a reason.
And it's again, this is like biblical, but it's my job to shepherd us into a better outcome. And if it's to dive on the sword or jump on the grenade or whatever my job is, you understand that.
Yeah,
and we're aligned in that way, and that was big for me.
That's one of the things too. One, I appreciate it, and I realized that was I remember talking to my wife about it. I was like, this is a point. I was like, I think I got somewhere with Lyman today. And I had to kind of explain the scenario to her. And I was like, I think this is what these people need. Like, these people who are usually at the top of the totem pole in most rooms that they're in, that everybody looks at and they're responsible for other people. And they're having other people come to them with their problems and what's wrong and what's not okay and what feels off. And when you have that, those people typically don't have the person to go to that's like, hey, man, you good?
Yeah.
And I realized that, again, just in having these conversations, one, when I ask, I have to accept no as an answer. If I say, hey, man, do you want to talk? And they go, hey, man, not really. Like a friend of ours.
I did say really, not really.
Yeah.
Which is the best part. But it's like, but I got a lot from that. I was like, all right, cool. Like, he cares, and he didn't ask me for anything.
That's all you need to know.
For a lot of shit.
Is that I give a fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't need you to open up. I didn't need you to dump anything that you weren't supposed to dump on me.
No, yeah.
I didn't need any of that. I needed you to know, as a homie, I care. I just did it with another friend of ours who's he's had problems with family as it relates to the LA fires.
Oh, shoot.
And I just sent him a text the next morning, hey, man, you good? And I don't need him to open up. I don't need him to go, dude, yes, I really need to talk right now. If he does, I'm there. That's what it's for. If the answer's thank you for reaching out, I know that at minimum, he knows I'm there if the door ever needs to be opened. The door's open on my end if he ever wants to. Hi, pup.
Dog made it out.
You're a little fluff. Or
the dog made it out. No, I actually learned something from that. You and I have a mutual friend that I'm starting to like a lot, get closer to. And he lost his house at that poker table, and he was struggling. And he's Mr. Oh, really? Yeah. He's Mr. Like, I'm gonna shut it down that night and have a good time and play cards.
You could just tell it was wearing on him.
He was struggling, and he left before me. I'm the guy that leaves early. Like, what do you mean? He left before me. And I took, because I'm a fixer, man. This is why I'm probably awful to be married to. Yeah, I'm a fixer because I get paid to solve problems. That is my role in business.
It's your career.
Yeah, and so I've got a lot of efficacy in that. So when I see someone struggling, and I actually do care, because I rarely give a shit, but I did care. I was like, okay, this is what I need to do. I took a page out of your book, and I was like, I'm going to let this man struggle tonight. I'm going to let him struggle. I'm going to let him have his privacy and do what he needs to do. I'm certainly not going to openly talk about it in front of anybody else.
Not at the table.
And then I text him the next day, just like you text me. I text him. I was like, hey, dude, everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be great. All those people that are displaced, it sucks. California sucks. Maybe this is the jump that a lot of people need to go explore something else.
Yeah.
And he goes, I want to believe that. That's great. But like some of these men that I know, they have families. And they're not going to see insurance checks. The ones that do get insurance checks, they're not going to see them for 6 months.
Yeah.
And so I did not help this man.
What happens if
I
it's
probably
not
made
okay?
it worse. Yeah, I probably made it worse, but I did try. And I did learn that.
You can't fix everything. What people need to know, because the men who are used to producing on their own, they're not actually looking at you to fix anything anyway. All they need to know is that you're willing to even just be a voice. I even said to him in the text, if you need to talk about it, or if you need to talk about everything except for that, I'm here. I think about a friend of mine that I ended up losing this year.
That's a good strategy as well.
It's what those people need, and oftentimes it ends up in the real conversation anyway. And so I'm going to let you think that you don't have to talk about it, and knowing that we're going to talk about it. A friend of mine that I ended up losing last year in June, that was kind of the game I played with him. He was very prideful about his struggles that he had internally, and he had ended up taking his own life in the middle of the year last year. But my game with him, not game, but like the way I navigated our conversations and our relationship was the door's open. And I knew whenever he texted me, he didn't smoke cigars. If he ever texted me, hey, you want to go grab a cigar? I know he just needs a safe place.
Babe, I gotta go.
That was, and my wife.
Babe, I gotta go. I need to go do this.
My wife, 1,000,000%. I would just say, hey, so and so text me. He didn't say anything. We got to go, or play poker. There was again, he knew what was important to me.
Yeah.
And he knew what I liked. And so if he was like, hey, let's go to the casino, he doesn't go to the casino all the time. And so I knew in that moment when he needed that, we can talk about literally everything except the problem. And I knew that it was some form of help. It was something helpful. Maybe he just needed to get away and not think about the things that were playing on his mind at the time. So I don't have to fix anything right now. And that was really hard because naturally I am a fixer as well. I want to solve problems. You're
a professional emotional fixer as well. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Big part of my job.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is when people are paying me to fix their stuff, you have to sit here and listen to me fix your problem, even if you don't want me to.
That's fair.
When you're a friend of mine outside of that, I have to be willing to have none of the conversation be actually about the problem. It can be everything around the problem. And I have to trust that something we talk about, or sometimes I'll tactfully tie in the problem to the normal conversation. They just need to know that they have a safe place to go to talk to. Again, especially people who don't have anywhere else to go. A lot of people don't want to go to a therapist. They don't want to go to their family. They don't want to look like they have problems to people that rely on them to be the strong support system for that person.
Being a woman is, I think, the hardest job in the world. There's a lot of reasons I feel that way. I'm going to get into them right now. But with an understanding that I think being a woman is the hardest job in the world. Being a man is not easy. And one of the, typically speaking, broadly speaking, no one freaking hang me for this, but like women are able to emotionally discharge. They're able to communicate and get things off their chests in a way that if I tried to do it, it's a weakness or it's looked,
It makes people skeptical.
Yeah, and so for me, the reputation that I have professionally of keeping a cool head, understanding and working the problem. We're not going to lose, don't worry. Jump on my team, let's go.
Yeah, let me worry.
Yeah, that works really well in a lot of situations. But sometimes, when you're in the thick of it, that camaraderie aspect where, maybe I don't even necessarily share what's going on, right? Like, it's enormously helpful. It's enormously helpful. And I did meet your friend at your birthday party. Really, again, sorry to hear about that.
Thank you.
I hope his wife and his family do their best to recover from a really difficult time.
They're moving, right? That's the thing. Like, you have to move. You have to go. I remember the day that it happened, her just like, how do I move on with life? And I was like, you have to. You have kids. You have to.
Oh, she's in a, yeah.
You can't not, is the thing.
She's, again,
she's a fucking killer.
Yeah. Well, good. She's going to need to be.
She's a G. And, like, in those moments where you don't, like, she had apologized for calling me that day to go to where the thing happened.
Yeah.
And I'd said again, like, who else would you rather have been there? And I asked, who else would you have called? If I didn't pick up the phone, who else would you have called? She's like, probably Amanda, my wife.
Yeah.
And in my head, I go, I don't want my wife being there.
Yeah.
I'm the right person. I was close enough because we're good friends. I'm not family. I'm not somebody who's going to be, like, it'll affect me forever, but it's not going to affect me the way that, like, when her aunts showed up. I didn't want them anywhere close to what had happened, so I had to, like, usher them around.
Yeah,
I was the right person to be there, and I've realized that my job is to be the right person at the right time for a grip of people throughout my life. And I'm really early on. Like, I'm 30. I know that I have a lifetime ahead of me of being the right person at the right time for whoever needs it.
Yeah.
And I know that that is the responsibility that I have been, like, that's been, let's say, bestowed upon me.
Yeah.
It's a gift. It's a responsibility. It's something I have to do. I can't not do it. And so I had to learn, again, a lot of times through fire and by overstepping boundaries and by asking too much and by trying to solve problems that didn't need to be solved, that you have to be tactful in the way that you get people to open up to you and to be receptive to your presence, especially when you're in some ways, an intimidating presence for those people. Because I've realized also, when people know what I do, people are really, really hesitant to open up because they think that I'm overanalyzing.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't need to be psychoanalyzed here.
Yeah. They think
you never
they're
did
be
that to me,
therapized.
but that's something when I was early on, I was like, I don't need to be psychoanalyzed.
But it's something I had to back off from, because at the beginning, especially when I was learning all the tools to do this,
you got a new skill.
Yeah,
and
I want to go deploy it all over the place.
Yeah.
Because
it helps. Like, it helps. It just doesn't help in every situation.
But also, I realize that it can become manipulative.
Yeah.
And this is why I have and will always continue to shit on like NLP practitioners. Those are the ones that I've found.
Define NLP, please.
Neuro-linguistic programming.
Oh.
It's like using body language and tonality and mirroring other people's movements to like connect with people.
Gotcha.
I find that to be a fabrication of what should come naturally. Being able to connect with other people should come naturally to us. We've learned ourselves out of it, and it's a teaching of using that as a tool as opposed to a way of being.
Yeah.
And it teaches people who sometimes want to manipulate somebody into buying something, into opening up in ways that you want them to. I've always realized that there's a responsibility that comes with being an observer, and you can't overstep the line. And I've had to, again, learn the line by stepping over it way too many times and burning bridges and ruining relationships that I'd had with people. So that now, when I run into somebody and I go, this is somebody I can be a good friend to or just help out in some way, shape, or form, I can't make it transactional at the beginning. I can't make it, I'm coming into this relationship or friendship or networking so that I can be helpful. Mm-hmm. It has to genuinely be, I like being around this person. I like having good conversations with this person. And if it ever arises that I can be helpful, I'm happy to be helpful. But I don't have a constant need to be helpful in those positions, because again, I think you can get high on that drug of being helpful a lot of times that make you push past boundaries that you shouldn't be pushing past with people.
I may have not been able to understand that as much in the past. I am very much not a bull in a china shop, but like, especially in business, I'm like, lay it all out there.
Yeah.
No one leaves this room until we get it all. Like, what does this look like? And we're gonna have a strategy and a step-by-step process, and it's gonna be documented, and this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah. Get our SOPs in order.
Yes, and lately, over the last several years, and working with somebody in particular, mm-hmm. I have started to understand the philosophy and the science behind communication, and it speaks to me very well with all the things that you're saying, because you say, oh, it's hardwired, it's the source code within us, and we've lost it. We need to redevelop that skill. Here to tell you, man, depending on the generation we're referring to, that skill is gone. That skill is lost.
But no, because think about children. Something I see it in my daughter. If my wife is having a bad day, my daughter knows and needs to be close to mom. She doesn't know how to fix anything.
Yeah.
And my wife is having a rough day, even if my daughter's the cause of the rough mm-hmm. day, because she oftentimes is. At the end of the night, my daughter's the one snuggling with mom and like rubbing her face. Mm-hmm. She wants to connect. She doesn't know how to all the time. But I do think it's an innate thing in us. And you're saying generationally it may be different. I think it's beaten out of you earlier.
At a certain age.
Yes.
And then you get efficacy through social media.
Kids are highly empathetic.
Yeah, they're very empathetic. You're right about that.
We are the ones who ruin it for them.
We absolutely.
We don't allow them to.
Well, let me give you a page out of someone else's book that I'm not going to take credit for. They're little copy machines. Mm-hmm. So they're going to copy all your traits, all of your mannerisms. They're going to copy your way of reasoning, your methodology of how you reach decisions, how you display emotion, both positive and negative. They're going to adopt all that. And that was like, kids don't come with a freaking playbook, dude. If a kid came with a playbook, let me tell you, it would be great. I'd be great with it.
Yeah, you'd be all over it.
It doesn't work that way. I agree with you on that, 100%. Yeah. They're copying all these things, and then they go out into the world, school, even elementary school, and they learn how everybody else does things, and they have to survive in that ecosystem as well as the one at home, and that's when things get wild.
Yeah. They also attune to the magnitude of things. This is something, and I learned it in child development classes, but just then seeing it played out with other people and then with my own children now. I have really young kids, but they respond to magnitude. So a lot of times in a household where the only time there's a heightened sense of feeling is when things are bad, they only know how to heighten their sensibilities around negative emotions. And so when you're not just as loud and expressive when things are good mm-hmm. as you are when things are bad, they attune only to the negative. And we do this as people as well.
That's no bueno.
Yeah. So when I'm not showing my outpouring of love with the same magnitude as I'm showing my outpouring of anger, frustration, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm only teaching them to pay attention to when things are negative. And we do this as adults as well. It's just way more.
We don't even mean to. That's the thing.
It's more heavily absorbed when they're kids.
Yeah, that's a fact.
This is like we do a household of we don't yell. My wife and I don't yell at each other. We don't cuss at each other.
Yeah.
We, especially like even tense conversations we don't have in front of our kids, even if it just sounds like we're talking.
Yeah.
My son, we can because he doesn't pick up on it, but we won't even have tense conversations in front of my daughter because she'll recognize the feeling of it, even if she doesn't understand what's being conveyed. She'll feel the tension, which is why, again, I think kids are highly empathetic individuals. They can pick up on the feeling of something, even if they don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
It's a hard one because, again, it leaks into adulthood.
Oh, nothing's impossible, but it's very hard to do everything right raising kids.
It's impossible.
It's very, 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 very challenging.
It's impossible. You limit the downsides.
You try. You try.
Let's talk again poker and how it has related to you in life and business. What life and business lessons have you squeezed out of the game of poker?
Oh gosh. I've always had a philosophy in business or in life that it's a season. And so there's a season where I was a great athlete and I did awesome things. And then there was the challenge and struggle of, getting your knee ripped up a couple times, understanding you're not going to have a career in sports. And then it's getting some efficacy in corporate America and then realizing that I'm never going to attain the goals that I want in life in this specific ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to build a business. Boy, this is going to suck. Building a business is really hard. And then running the business is also very hard, but it's a completely different struggle. And you take pros and cons and things that you enjoy about that experience and things that you hate about that experience, but it was an experience nonetheless. Poker is very similar. Okay, I started my poker career young. I play my cards, man, and we know several of those players. I play my cards. And when you play against players that are to your same skill level, playing your cards or playing online when no one can read you and there's no physical presence.
Yeah.
I did very well. I friggin' didn't have a job in college for 2 years. I just played Poker Stars and it was dope. And I get it. It's only $3,000 a month, but that was in Nevada.
In college?
It was freaking everything. It was amazing. And so for me, that was great. I don't think it was actually that long. But the point is I did that for a while. And I remember I was working at a retail, the Buckle, doing retail stuff. I'm why am I not playing poker right now? So getting back to it, I learned joining a game with better players that the cards are, I am still convinced, I can't prove it, I'm still convinced it's more than 50%, but it's 50% of it is your cards. But if you're going to take an entire 3-hour, 5-hour session and you're going to go through the hands and you're going to look at it like a formula or an algorithm, you're going to understand that how people read you and the intel that they get over an entire session or 20 sessions or 100 sessions, the cards become less and less and less and less of a factor. Yep. So what I've learned in poker and business, similar to, there are seasons, and some seasons you're going to get cards. And if you learn how to be read and read, you can do enormously well. Mm-hmm. And that's where that's where the ego comes in. Damn, I'm really good at poker. Are you kidding me? I'm up $15K in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I'm a gangster at this. Well, what happens when a bad string of cards come in? What happens when you get bad beated a few times in a hand, or you that used to affect, it still does affect me emotionally because I hate losing, man. I hate losing so much.
Yeah.
But I've learned to understand that it's about the entire body of work. It's about getting better and better at reading people. It's about getting better and better about not being read as efficiently. That puts you in that 1 or 2 positions a night. Doesn't matter if I have the best cards. I'm absolutely going to take down this pot.
Yep.
And then another thing is the deception of poker. So I can present myself as somebody that I normally wouldn't. Kyree, I don't do this professionally. This is the antichrist of what I do professionally. Again, professionally, my word is my bond. I'll stand on that. I'll die on that cross, because to me, I'd rather die on that cross than have anybody question those type of things. But poker's completely different. Poker, I need you to believe that I am an honest player because you've seen me be an honest player a bunch of times. But that one time I'm not, I need you to believe that I'm an honest player.
Absolutely.
And so that's perhaps another lesson. And then this is something that's just been reinforced. When you're running a business or you're making investments or you're honestly just getting the shit kicked out of you every day and you're trying to pick a winner, Thinking in Bets, and this goes back to that book that I
a
shared
great
with you,
book.
Thinking in Bets. You're not selling your soul to one particular thing. You're making calculated bets that have a risk-reward ratio. You're deploying several in a night or several in a week, or this is true in business and poker. You just have to win 6 out of 10 times. You don't, in fact, have to make it. Like, poker is not a game where the best player at the table never loses. That is not the case.
No.
And that's also the case in business, and probably the case in life, though I'm not qualified to say that. But poker's enormously enjoyable for me, whether I win or I lose, because it's another way to like express my personality in a way that I do not get the chance to otherwise.
Yeah, it's
Can't
a
come
unique
home and be
experience.
like, you want to go to dinner? Oh, do you want to go to? Well, I could want to go to dinner, or only if we go to this place or whatever. You know, I can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, so I do like it for that reason.
Yeah.
But
I get to
don't think
deploy all my
poker's-
manipulation at the poker table so that it
You
doesn't
get it
leak
out of your
anywhere else.
system. It's hard. Oh, one more thing about poker that's super thrilling. Like people talk, I think the kids are calling it like the juice these days, like the juice. I don't get in this position very often, but sometimes I have over like the last couple of years. And to be down, or even not down, like just to be quiet and just kind of like, man, I can't get cards or I can't make any action happen, and then win a big pot. That's a little like
back,
business.
baby.
Yeah, that's a little like business. You're like, all right,
Yeah.
like this is great. And then you go home and you're like, I got so lucky it doesn't
I
even
got my
matter.
gusto
You
back.
know, but
Doesn't
it's-
matter how I won.
It's fun, yeah. Poker guys call it the feeling or the juice or whatever it is, but that part's super
Yeah.
fun. I
The
enjoy
thing
that.
about, it's more the person in the cards. This has actually been shown. It's not like a sure thing, but you'll have poker pros who will come into a random game or even like a heads up game, let's say, and a poker pro cannot look at his cards and beat you just by watching how you play and how you bet, and they'll lose at first. They'll
for
lose
sure.
a bunch at first.
They're getting data. They're gathering
All
data.
they're doing is gathering data on why you did this thing or how strong you were or how strong did you feel like you were.
Yeah.
And the person doesn't know how to adapt to a blind hand.
Yeah.
And so they're playing as if you even looked at your cards. And I forget what YouTube video it was or who it was. It was either like Daniel, I want to say it was like Daniel Negreanu or something like that. Huge poker player. Would play blind against a random person and absolutely fucking kill them. It was shown in like the poker movie, I'm trying to think of the name of it, like the most popular poker movie. Matt Damon's the main character, but he's watching all these like lawyers. He's like a pre-law guy, and he's watching all these lawyers play their like weekly poker game, and he's helping out his mentor, and he's like, no, you got to do this, and he's like betting for the guy. And the guy's like, wait, what? And he's like, oh, here's why. This guy couldn't possibly have this. This guy probably has this at best. This guy has blah, blah, blah. This guy has, and he's like calling out what they have because he's been watching them. And they all fold because he's like, well, he must have a fucking great hand. And he just shows a complete bluff.
Yeah.
And he's just showing like, I can just read people and be way better at this game. It's also helpful to know the math. I'll say, like, for my poker experience, I'm way better at people than I am at the math of poker. This is why, like, and I say it out loud at our poker game. There are certain terms, like fold equity. I heard it in a bunch of poker like videos that I watch on YouTube, and I was like, I don't even know what that is. And the guys that we play with weekly didn't believe me that I didn't know what this thing was.
They didn't even bother telling you because they were like,
No, they told, like, Williams told me.
Okay.
And he like explained what fold equity
Yeah.
was. And I was like, I genuinely didn't understand what it is, but I know the concept of it. When he explained it, I was like, oh, I do that. I take that into account. I just didn't know what it was called. And I realized that my ability to play people has made me way better at playing poker than if I just sat and studied. I cannot play online poker. It hurts my soul, and it is the most boring thing in the world to play online.
Yeah.
I had to, cut my teeth playing poker live because that's the only way I could get enjoyment out of it. I had to see you. I had to understand why you did the things that you have done up to this point. And even like when I go out of town, I play in Vegas, or I'll play at somebody's house, if I'm traveling somewhere, somebody that I know. The first hour, all I'm really doing is watching what other people are doing.
yeah,
Because I know that I'm at a disadvantage if I'm just playing the math of poker.
Yeah.
Like if I played online. There's people who have solvers and bots and all that. I know exactly when to randomize my range, and I don't know how to do any of those things. I think I do them to some extent because I've picked up on it, but I only really know how to pick up on the patterns of what people have been doing. Again, going back to the interviews that I'd done, I can only recognize patterns and play off of those, including the cards that are obviously I have to know what my cards are and how they
Pattern
play
recognition
with whatever.
is like, it's not the only thing, but it makes you successful in a lot of things, but it's typically like the first bar that you have. Like, oh, I can recognize when things are going well and when they're not. I can allocate resources depending on such and then go. But it's, in my experience, it's like, it's that first step in a 3-step process to become good at something.
For sure.
You know? Poker is really, really fun, and it's a great escape from the day-to-day for me. I don't have any intentions of going pro, but like anything else, I do always want to get better at something. I'm like a lifelong learner. That's something that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
I would love to get to a point where I'm consistently winning $2,000-$3,000 a night and not going through the nights where I lose. But my playing style, I'm very rarely going to win 10 or 15 like you and some of these other guys can win, because it's a completely different playing style.
Yeah.
I'm also still
But you're not going to lose that much either for the
No,
most part.
hell no. And this gets to it. The root of everything is I go there every day and I try to get better for myself, and I try to understand them all a little better, and I try to find holes in the model, and I try to exploit holes. It's mostly an internal thing. The really good poker players, the internal is like, because they've been playing forever and they just intuitively understand it. They're not on my level. They're on another level.
Yeah.
And all of their gives and takes are all external. They're going to call that guy down to the river and purposely lose $2,500, $3,000 on a hand because they need to create efficacy in their mind. We're like, yeah, I just needed to keep you on. I just needed to know what you have, because I'm definitely going to use that an hour and a half from now.
Calling somebody down with ace high is one of the best things
it's gnarly.
you can do for yourself. Also, the gut check that it gives you sometimes.
Yeah. You got to be comfortable with losing. And I've always been kind of a fear of loss person until just about 3 or 4 years ago, because I finally had enough, I guess, to lose and not care. So it's probably cheating. But ultimately, I was like, no, I can show up. I can make a couple of good reads. I can make a couple of bad reads. I could leave and lose $1,500, $2,000. It's not going to ruin my night. It's not going to ruin my night. But the reverse is not true at all. I can win $4 or $5 grand. Dude, you should see me on like the family group chat when I get home, because my wife's asleep with the kids. So it's like 12 or 11 o'clock at night. I'm driving home like, Daddy's got that money. Like, what is? I'll leave your winnings on the nightstand, babe. Like stuff like, she's like, you're an idiot. Like this is totally stupid. I'm like, I know.
$700.
Yeah,
You feel great about it though.
I feel absolutely elated. Now I forget about it the next day.
A win is a win.
A win's a win, baby. And I'm so competitive. It helps me.
It's been good for like the emotional regulation side as well. When I can tell when people get tilted easily at a poker table, it is so much easier. So this is
they'll go deeper. They'll go super deep.
Williams asked me why I bluffed somebody at the table, and he asked me why I showed him the cards, and I didn't say anything. Mm-hmm. And the guy said something. He was like, "Well, it's so that I'll call him next time," and he thinks that I'm going to call him on his next big bet, and immediately that goes into the bank of information.
Yeah.
Of like,
okay,
dude, next time I'm betting, I'm going to bet whether he believes I could be bluffing him again out of a good-sized pot, or there's like the reverse psychology.
You're in his head already. You were living rent-free in his head at that point.
Yes.
That's the point.
That's it. I just want you to know that I can throw you off your game, so that I don't need to know what you're going to do. I need to know that you're not going to make an optimal decision all the time. Mm-hmm. Whereas the guys who can always stay, all right, next hand.
Even keel.
All right, next hand. Those guys I can't exploit to that degree.
Dude,
I have
I
to play
can't
poker
tell you
them.
how intimidating it's not quite it's the money for sure, because how I was raised, like it's definitely some money.
Yeah.
But like I'll see dudes at our table, I'm not going to name names. I'll see dudes at our table who are great poker players, and they'll get wrecked. Maybe they made a bad read, but actually most of the time it's like the cards, or it's like they did
bad
okay,
run out,
right?
whatever.
But the point is even if they made a bad decision or not, got unlucky. Pull it out. Okay, 1,000 more, 2K more. And it's like, dude, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I haven't stayed that late ever, but like the point is it's late in the night. Like, you lost 3 or 4K.
Time to go home.
Like, for me, I think my wife would probably care, but the point is, it's like, it's not even fear of losing the money. It's like fear of going too far. And I don't have that, at least today. Like, every once in a while, like I'll buy in again, and I'll lose, and I'm like, man. Now, I'm not upset about it now, but I'll watch these guys, and I'm like, oh, they're running a model.
Yeah.
And they're in their 10 decisions that night, and I've had 3 that are bad in a row. That's fine. I've got another 7 to make up for it. Like, it's no problem.
People also don't merge nights. So they go, I have to win it all back tonight, not I have to win it back this month.
Oh yeah, that's
So people will go, I have to like, oh my God, I'm down that much? Shit. And they start betting frantically, or they start shoving like
only
crazy.
looking for the big win or whatever.
They have to go for the big win. They just polarize themselves. They're either going to win big and win it all back, or you can exploit them and know that they really need to win it all back because of the game they're playing in their own head.
Oh, that's
and you can just
that's
sit
where
wait.
I ethically I'm like, oh, I do not want to. Like I wrecked. I'm not gonna name name. I wrecked some dude on Friday. I wrecked him at the very end, and when I tell you how bad I felt so bad.
But again, because we've seen him play so much,
felt so
you knew, like in the group chat, I was able to tell you exactly what he
you
had.
literally were like,
I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Oh, so
I felt so bad.
So he had this, and you flopped 2 pair with a suited connector hand.
Yeah, it was.
Did you have 6-7 suited?
Dude, it was way worse than that.
Oh,
I
no.
had King 7.
Oh no.
And again, I had said to the table, it's about that time, boys. It's like 11:40. Like I got to be getting going. And they're like, yeah, no problem. And he had just been sitting there nursing a stack, not getting any hands.
Yep.
So when he raises, I'm like,
You know
okay,
exactly what he has.
I know he's got high pair or ace king. Like that's what he's got. And so I was immediately like, I'm definitely just going to smooth call this and see if I can hit a flop because I'm going. And when I flopped 2 pair, I think I had King 7 or something like that. I hit 2 pair and I saw him come out with like a 40 raise. I was like,
he's not getting away from this.
he's not going to get away from it. And so I immediately, like, part of me said, do the gentleman thing.
Yeah.
Like, just pump all in.
40 to 600.
He's not going to call 1,000 with him and his. He's not going to call 1,000.
Yes.
He's not. Like, I'm going to let him off the hook with this. He snap called. He snap called for all his chips.
Yeah.
And I felt bad because I wasn't getting great cards. So I was down like probably it's a small game. So I was down like $400 at that point. I don't know if he thought it didn't matter.
He's not even thinking about what you're doing is the thing.
He wasn't even in his mind.
He's not considering what you might have.
Here, snap called. And it was so funny because the other guy that was in the group chat, I didn't need to flip over the cards. He just looks at me and goes,
oh, he's wrecked.
poor guy.
Because that's the thing. It didn't matter if you had 6-7, King 7, pocket 6s, or pocket 7s.
It was positioning is all I was doing. I was also on the button. So I was like, this is so easy
And
to
if
do.
I hit anything over a pair, you're fucked. Because, again, you can't get away from it.
Yeah.
But again, life, same thing.
Yeah.
You know people who cannot help themselves.
Oh, true in all things.
They're the people who I know if they feel a scratch of I could possibly, they're going to just go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I know that about you, you could have bet an unlimited amount of money there and you're getting snap called.
Yeah.
Maybe not. But like to certain people at that game, you could have gone from $40 and been like, hey, I have 1,000, but I got 5,000 in the truck. I'll bet that on top of it. And they'd be like, cool, I get more money from you.
Yeah.
They cannot help themselves. And that's what poker. This is why I like playing at our game versus like at the casino, is I don't have to worry about if I'm taking somebody's car payment or rent money.
Oh, that's a whole nother. I just don't enjoy playing. But yeah, that's a great
But
point.
it's also boring because nobody talks. It's not as nearly as much fun as we have at this game because everybody knows each other. There's camaraderie. It's fun. But if I can tell you can't help yourself, because most poker players are gamblers at heart, and I don't gamble outside of poker for the most part. I'll place like my little side bets. I play fantasy football, like random little things. But to that degree, I don't gamble on anything like I do there. But if I'm playing with a bunch of people who can't help themselves, it is a prime spot for me. I do this when I go play in Vegas. I only now, because I've made the mistake of playing on like a Wednesday night in Vegas with all the card sharks there. And I'm like, oh, I was the fish and I'm the asshole.
Yeah.
And it's not until I'm down $4,000 and I get back to my hotel room where I go, oh yeah, they all started leaving when I left.
They were signaling
I was
half
the
that
asshole.
time. What's going on there?
They're all smiling at each other.
Yeah.
But I go on like a Friday or Saturday night. I pretend to drink. I tell the waitress ahead of time, I'm
Oh,
going to
you
order
told
a
me that
vodka
one
soda.
time. Yeah.
Just bring me soda water.
Yeah.
And I will drink as much as everybody else does, but I'm drinking soda water and I'm pretending like I'm drinking vodka sodas. So I've crushed 12 of them.
Yeah.
People think I'm the loose asshole.
Yeah.
I buy like fake
And then
jewelry.
you embed in that persona. You play
I have to be that
visibly
guy.
loose.
I bring my little Louis Vuitton crossbody bag. I will wear gaudy. I just bought like a gaudy ass like diamond looking necklace. It's like moissanite or whatever, probably cubic zirconium. And I'm gonna wear that. It's $40. I'm gonna wear that specifically to go to Vegas to look like rich out of town asshole.
Yeah.
And then I just adopt the persona, and I'm never gonna see most of these people again.
Never.
And you can absolutely crush at a game where nobody knows who you are just based on perception that you've fabricated for these people. I get so much enjoyment out of that when I
Yeah.
get to go back to my hotel room and just start counting out whatever I won.
FaceTiming your wife. You're like, she's not gonna answer.
I
'Cause she's
FaceTime my
asleep,
wife
but
and her
it's
best
like,
friend last time it happened.
Yeah.
Because they were, I think the friend's husband was supposed to go with me and he ended up backing out last minute. And I FaceTimed them afterwards. I was like, well, you fucking missed out on this massive
Loser.
thing.
Yeah.
And it's only because, again, I'm looking for people who can't help themselves, who are
Yeah.
drinking too much,
Yeah.
who are gambling too much. It's also like a higher stakes place where I know that most people who are at this higher stakes thing can afford to lose the
Well,
money
they can
they put on the
afford, and
table.
they're competitive, or they're egotistical, or they're there to have a good time, and they've actually already parted with the money. That's something else I've seen. It's actually something that's actually really interesting about myself that I've noticed. Like, if I go and I know it's not the night, you've seen me, like, I'll flip,
At
I'll
the end
do
of the
these
night?
things when I leave, because I have this, like, emotional indebtment that I feel
Yeah.
to the group. It's like, look, I'm a program. I'm running. I understand what this is. Some nights are great. Some nights aren't great. It's fine. Because I'm playing the long game of, I want to be invited to the game. I have a great time. I learn a lot. And it's a nice departure from everyday life.
Everything else. That's
Yeah.
the thing that poker's done for me, especially I like playing at night. I think about the people who have to worry about, you're one of them, unfortunately, is like, what's my wife going to say if I'm out past X amount of
Yeah.
time? Now, for me, my wife's asleep. And we had this thing at the beginning of our relationship was like, nothing good happens after midnight. Like her mom had always kind of had that philosophy. And so when we started dating and I was out playing poker late.
Well, on most things, she's probably right.
Yeah, that's the thing.
On most things, she's
And
probably
also
accurate.
the type of people that play poker late at night.
Yeah.
Because I go to some of these games where people are doing extracurricular activities
Yeah.
outside of the poker table. And I can be around those people and not have to indulge. So because I know that about myself and now that my wife knows that about me, I can go clean up at these places.
Yeah.
Because again, I'm targeting the people who cannot help themselves, that are beholden to oftentimes an addiction that they
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
That again, I have to feel comfortable they can afford the addiction
Yeah,
that they're
yeah, for
having.
sure, for sure.
That I'm not the reason that they're not, that they're going to be out on the street or something.
Yeah.
But I like playing at these games, again, like our Wednesday game, because I know that everybody at that table can afford to be at the table.
Yeah.
And they're not bringing money that they can't afford to lose.
Yeah.
There's guys pulling out envelopes because they stopped at the bank and just, hey, I happen to have 5, 10, 15 grand on me tonight. Here you go. And it's all up for
I've
grabs.
thought about how much is in those envelopes at times,
Dude.
and then I'm like, don't think that.
No.
Just let
It's
them be
$5
there.
grand,
That's
and I've
their
seen
business.
that guy have like 3 or 4 envelopes that he'll
Yeah.
pull out.
Yeah.
And
Wild.
but also he has unlimited money.
Yeah.
So I couldn't find a way to feel bad when he runs into
find
a
a way.
bad run.
I can find a way to feel bad,
I
but
can't.
but the point is absolutely correct. Yeah, it's a different mindset when you play.
Yeah.
I think I had a question for you, and I wrote it down earlier, so it should come to me momentarily. It was essentially something to the effect of, in your current business, I know that you did a course. We celebrated like the launch of a course. I know that you do coaching. I know that you do marketing. Unbeknownst thing to most. So I care deeply about the development of people. So when I had pretty much knew I was going to sell the company, we had come up to like a customer acquisition headwind, and we weren't sure if it was brand was part of it, whatever. And I came to you, and I was like, hey, I'd like to speak with you about this. Like, consult with us. Like, let's see if there's anything that we're not doing, or you have any insights. And you're like, yeah, for sure. Just like, I'll meet you there. And I was like, no. I'm going to actually have my team come in, and I'm going to have, one of my guys lead this. And I remember you were like, dude, you're going to like fly this guy in from Barcelona. You're going to like do all this. Like, why? And I was like, well, because he's my guy. And like, he's done everything for me, and he's been so loyal and so incredible. He's highly intelligent,
Great
and I'm
guy.
investing in his career. And whether we do sell simple nursing and I go on to do something else and we get to work together in the future, or he stays behind, like, this is an investment in him, not just the business. And I remember you were like, dang, okay, so this is about Greg. I'm like, this is absolutely about Greg. Like a little bit of Liam, like a little bit of other people, but it's like, yeah, this is about him. And so I say that to say, do you get a lot of enjoyment when you get to like, because when you think of where you want to allocate your time and where you want your business to go and grow, is it experiences like that where you get to teach people that otherwise don't know? I'm imagining that has some type of satisfaction equipped with it. Where do you want to see your business grow in 2025, 2026 and beyond? Where do you want to see your career blossom? Because you've got some pretty unique gifts, and I'm trying to put my finger on where you're going.
Yeah. So for marketing first, because that's the easy one, it's a continuation of what I'm already doing. I don't feel the need to grow a large agency. I don't feel the need to grow a huge team under me. Marketing, I always say, is something that I've become skilled at. I had to acquire the skill of marketing based on my understanding of people, but people is what's important to me and what's interesting to me. Psychology, but also I deeply care about who people are, why they are that way, and how I can help them become more of that or different than that, whatever it is. For marketing, it's always just going to be a continuation of I like solving problems, and I can tactfully implement my experiences into something that's already working. This is like, I'm priced to a point where beginners don't typically come work with me or hire me for marketing services for the most part. It's established businesses. I work with a lot of like boring businesses that already have something working. And a lot of times it's a shift in perspective. So like when I came in to work with you guys, most of what I did there, I did some tactical stuff that like, oh, we can put this here and change this.
Yeah, add groupings, etc.
But the way you're expressing your brand and yourselves to your audience, I was like, this is the opportunity. This is like, I told you what it sounded
You're
like.
A bunch of dudes in a locker room selling to chicks. What are you guys doing?
I felt, because this is like 3 or 4 hours into us
Yeah,
talking, I was like,
yeah.
okay, I can say this harshly and still like they know that it's because I care. It's not because
Yeah,
I'm
of
like
course.
throwing a jab. It sounds like a bunch of dudes trying to talk to chicks that are speaking from the man in the locker room's perspective.
doubt.
Or a lot of times, because a lot of times you're removed from your audience. And so when you're brainstorming what to do, it's the dudes in the back locker room talking, and then you deploy it to the audience as opposed to taking the audience into account when you're saying what you're saying.
Yeah. I think your position was actually, so first of all, the insight was great, but then additionally you were like, Lyman, like you guys are obviously decent at copywriting. The product
fucking
is
working.
obviously excellent. Like your run rate, your revenue, like what is it to you to make this shift? And that's where Greg was like,
Yeah.
like, wow.
The light bulb moments are what I do it for.
Yeah.
I want to have, I will say a bunch of things because I don't know what's going to hit. When I'm consulting, I don't know out of all the things that I'm throwing at somebody, what's going to be like, that's it. I don't know what that is before I come up with it. And I can say 30 things. And if 1 or 2 of them are like, oh my gosh, yes, let's
You can
run
make a
with
big
that.
impact on the business.
That feels great for me.
Yeah.
So in marketing, that's what I enjoy doing. I say that I experience that at a higher rate in the coaching business.
Yeah.
Also,
you have to.
the coaching business is, it is who I am. That is the talent that I have. Again, skill in marketing. I'm talented in people. I just get it. I can look at it. I can look at a situation. I can hear and absorb all the information. I'm a really good listener, active listener at the beginning of working with somebody. Most of it's them talking and telling me things, and I'm downloading the information, similar to when I'm playing poker. The beginning is me downloading all the information and distilling it and saying, okay, what needs to be squeezed out of this? What needs to be shifted away from? And so in business, in the coaching, I think I need to bring more of that out publicly. I've done it behind the scenes for a long time. And I know that I need to, and you kind of encourage this in me as well in our conversations of like, this needs to be known by more people. And I've always prided myself in some sort of mystery where people have to come to me and go, okay, by the way, what the fuck is it that you do?
Yeah.
I just had this with Coco. We met up at Churchill's a few weeks ago, and he was like, okay, I have to ask. I know you do some marketing shit, whatever.
Yeah.
This other thing, what the fuck is that? He's like, I've heard Lyman say something really like, quickly at the poker table, or Dom has said something very quickly at the poker table. What the fuck is it? And I just kind of explained to him, here's how I help people. He was like, are you doing this in businesses? Are you doing this with the executive? Like, he got excited for me about what I was doing.
Yes.
And so it's taking what I known I needed to do for a long time and actually just saying, okay, it's time to really put it out there. Because it's a scary thing to put it out there as well.
Commit to scaling in that way.
Commit to scaling, the willingness to put on the front what I've always done behind the scenes. I'm allowing more of a peek behind the curtain.
Exposure component.
Yeah, it's exposing what I've been, let's say, in the lab working on.
Yeah.
Most of it's on private Zoom calls or privately flying into businesses.
Yeah.
I'm just started working with another client of mine in Cleveland. They own a masonry company. They're a big, like, boring business, the largest masonry company in Ohio. And I like working with those businesses. Again, that's only on the marketing side, but in my coaching business, I work with some fucking awesome people.
Yeah.
I get to work with guys that other people look up to, and I never have had to say, I never had to take any sort of credit, and I don't really want to take credit for like who they've become. But a lot of the people other people look up to, I'm the guy they go to behind the scenes. And making that more available and making myself more available to people in that way is something I know I need to start doing this year. So it's putting a game plan together. I already told my wife, like, I need to go lock myself in a cabin for 2 days and really start game planning how I bring this stuff out more.
Everybody could benefit from doing that once a quarter.
Well, because when I launched my course, again, shortly after is when I lost a friend of mine, and we were kind of tossed into this this unanticipated whirlwind of other things going on. And so it did disrupt it. It's also exactly where I was supposed to be. I was supposed to be with my family. We had just bought a house. I was supposed to be who I was right then. It disrupted something that I was working on that I now need to shift back into, is putting on my marketer hat for my own business and being willing to step out and say,
I agree with that.
Here's who I am, here's what I do, and find the right ways to say it to the right people. Again, I need to open the door so that people know I can be the right person at the right time for whoever needs to come in and experience it. And then also, part of the course was to make it more available to people who can't normally afford to hire me one-on-one.
Yeah.
I want to make it something. I've had this hard thing about, like, I don't want to be like a men's mental health coach, but my friend taking his own life has really given me a little bit of a kick in the pants of, like, that is an aspect to what I do. Helping men navigate this thing that's in their heads is something that I need to do more often and for a wider range of people than I have up to this point. It's been exclusive, let's say, and it needs to be more widely and readily available to people.
I think what you do is fantastic. I'm a business guy, so I can't turn it off.
Thank you.
I think what you do is fantastic. And I think the internet-based kind of lower price point, mass scale adoption, I think could be a very good business for you. I think you have the right personality, the right presence. You're actually a great content creator, and you're a great marketer. So, like, that formula typically works more often than it doesn't.
Yeah.
I really like this idea, and that's why I baited it with you personally.
I know, you've been nudging me.
I really like this idea of coming in and starting a relationship as a marketer. And yeah, dude, Google, Fortune, even 5,000 companies are not going to take you. Not today. That's not how the corporate structure
Absolutely.
works. But like businesses that are maybe doing like $1 million a year to up to like $25 or $50 million a year, they lack context. They are so deep in the weeds typically. What's the saying? You can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
They've usually got one or two things that they've done really well. And then there's typically like 8 or 10 things in the shelf that they're like,
let's not look in there.
let's just, we're going to figure those out. I'll hire that one person or, I'll get that one.
Shove it in the closet, close the door.
And we're all guilty of it, because when you get efficacy in something and it prints money, you're like, yes, let's double down on this.
Yeah.
But I see this really unique opportunity for you to get into a business that size and start at marketing.
Yeah.
Or start, and then it's not linear. Like that relationship grows. So it's like, hey, I started with your marketing team, but like, here's the insights that we came to.
Yeah.
Do you think that these insights would be useful? And if they've won using your insights, they're gonna be like, well, gosh,
obviously
no one
works.
usually makes the jump, because I was very skeptical. Like, no one usually makes the jump from, marketing to something like, I'm a marketer. I wouldn't be able to tell you how to do anything, but you have a unique skill set. If you created a model where you were like, well, how about we do this? Don't pay me. Let's just go for a weekend or a quick little offsite. Let's bring your executives in. Let's bring in the people, and I'll create like this one-off coaching program, and let's see if we get results.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many consultants have a infinite monthly budget retainer, and then when they get them like 3 or 4 months, like, we're going to sign a 2-year deal, and like, you're actually there for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Like, you're actually there to inflict change and create value. And so I see that business model, I see the internet thing, and I see the stuff that you can do on the side that's obviously very, very profitable and working well for you now. I see this like, let's get into business, let's create key relationships with the board or with the executive team or with the operator or the founder, and like, you make the price point that works well enough to where pretty much whatever you do when you show up is valuable because of who you are, but you're not also like raking them over the coals trying to extract as much money as possible in fee or hourly rate.
The marketing allows us to tie it to revenue as well. That was one of the things, like, I started marketing because
I would spend an infinite, I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm just, to round that out, I would spend an infinite amount, if someone was like, it'll be $300,000 a month, but I was winning in 3 different areas. I was investing in my people. Those people were showing results. You'd create some type of end of quarter review for me and that math checked.
Yeah.
I would be like, great. Not only is this great, I'm not taking any of my competitors, but like I have this other friend and business owner that's in here. Like Mike Linares, with someone like you in his life, because I'm 1/15 of how good you are, I'm not responsible for his success, but like just the focus alone.
You became a piece of that for him.
He built $100 and something million company in 4 years.
Yeah.
Just with that. So like I look at this thing being industry agnostic, like people need that. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, man. Again, you've nudged it multiple times. Same thing. Like you've expressed like, hey, this is a thing that you need to do.
This is a shut up
No,
Lyman moment?
no,
Okay.
not at all.
Okay.
It was I'm acknowledging that the nudges are working.
Yeah.
That it's something I've known I needed to do. I had a conversation with a mentor of mine. He like almost exclusively does this, trains executive teams on the life side of it, because he's not a marketer, he's not a business builder, he's not any of these other things. It's only the interpersonal side. But the fact that I have both, I think, is a unique selling proposition.
You can tie to revenue, like you said.
Yeah,
At least
like,
in the
that
beginning.
makes it so much easier for the business owner, right?
Yeah.
It looks so much better on the P&Ls when it's like, oh, we're hiring for marketing, but also we're doing all these other things. So it's putting words to how that works inside of a corporate structure that you and I have like lightly tapped into that really needs to have some gasoline put behind it for this year. So definitely something I know I've needed to step into, and it's becoming more and more apparent that this needs to be a big part of this year's plan.
I'm sold. So I'm
Thank
sold.
you, man.
I'm ready for that. I look forward to 2025. I look forward to more chats. This was a little uncomfortable for me. This is the first thing
That's
like
good.
this
It's the
I've ever
first one.
done.
Well, you're not like a public. You're not building a personal brand.
Anybody but you. Nah, no personal brand.
Yeah.
I'll be all right.
I appreciate you coming to chat.
Yeah, you got to.
Thank you. I think people will like it.
Thanks, man.
Awesome, brother.